Mr. Placco, can you take roll?
Lori Krenisky,
Here?
Linda Grassi,
Here.
Denise Brewster,
Here.
Scott Fishel,
Here.
Dennis King.
Here.
Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public comment during the meeting in the public participation section on the agenda. Make a motion to approve September 26, 2024 board minutes, October 8, 2024 special meeting minutes, and October 14, 2024 work session minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, Mr. Placco, can you call the roll?
Dennis King,
Aye.
Lori Krenisky,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Scott Fishel.
Aye.
Motion carried. That brings us to special reports.
Okay, we actually have a number of special reports tonight. And the first, I'm really excited to turn it over to Mrs. Wakeham, who is going to talk about Melridge. Clicker's not working. There you go.
So hi, everybody. I'm Gretchen Wake. I'm the principal at Melridge. So we're just going to share a few things about how our year has started out this year so far at Melridge. So we've had a great start. Some fun things that we've done. We had kindergarten, first and second graders got to meet a real-life, fully dressed firefighter, which was the first time that that has happened while I've been at Melridge. So that was really neat to see the kids see what that looked like and what he would sound like, he or she would sound like if they were ever in that situation. We had a fire truck visit at the same time, so the kids got to go through the fire truck and see all of the cool tools and gadgets and ask 100 gazillion questions about what everything was. So they really enjoyed that. We had our trunk or treat on October 10th. This was our second annual trunk or treat that our PTO organized. It was very well attended. We had over 150 kids come. We had 25 trunks decorated by teachers and families. The kids had a costume contest and a costume parade, so that was really a neat event, and we had beautiful weather for it. It was perfect. We had, in fourth grade, Mrs. Sternberg, our fourth grade ELA teacher, read the book, The Wild Robot, to our fourth grade students, and then we were able to take a group of students on a Saturday to the movie theater at Atlas Diamond Center Theater, and they got to hang out with their friends and watch a movie, and it was really pretty cool. As you can see from the smiles, they really had a good time. And the movie was pretty good, too. This week, we have selected our student leadership committee, so we have third and fourth graders on the committee, one third grader from each homeroom, and two fourth graders from each homeroom, so there's 8 students total. There's only 6 in the picture, 2 were absent on this day when we announced it. But those students will give us input on different events that we do at school, such as like field day, things happening in the cafeteria. They will be representing their classmates and giving their input on things that are happening at Melridge. So there were 60 applicants for the positions, and we only have about 110 fourth and fifth graders, or third and fourth graders. So over half of them filled out an application, which was pretty cool. So 8 of those were selected, and it was based on, they had to write some extended responses just to get some writing practice in there as well. So they had to say what qualities they thought a good leader would have, and then also what kinds of changes they would recommend at Melridge. So many of them wanted like several $1 million to make the classrooms bigger and add a second gym and all of those things.
Recess all day and pizza for everyone.
Exactly. You have to bring them down to reality, but it's good to dream. Tonight I wanted to focus a little bit about a program that we do at Melridge. We have this at all of the elementary, or all of the schools really in the district, but it's our English Learners Program. Mrs. Norma Gutierrez is our new ESL teacher that was hired this year, so she's going to come on down and join me. We have quite a few English language learner students at Melridge. There's 33 currently this year, and that makes up 13% of our population at Melridge. We have a diverse languages that are spoken from Melridge. We have students speaking Arabic, Spanish, Thai, Ukrainian, in addition to learning English. And Norma's going to talk a little bit about what supports we provide.
Yes, hi guys. My name is Norma Gutierrez and I'm the ESL teacher for Melridge. We do provide different supports for our students there. One of the supports we provide is a targeted English instruction using our new curriculum, which is called Connect. This is at different grade levels for each of our students because we do service kindergarten through 4th grade at Melridge. We also allow or have the BRASS Plus ELL, which is helping our students read with like basic words, sight words, and they love it, stories that they like. We also have available the Lexia Core 5, which our students can actually work from home as well. And this helps with their phonics, their sounds, and overall like their confidence with like English words, building them. As well as for our newcomers, we have a separate program, which is a SAIL program. This helps our newcomers with learning basic English, just like, getting around, asking to go to the restroom, letters, numbers, and we've seen such a great growth with our newcomers at Melridge. Talking a little bit more about our services with Bridge Language and our program Connect. These programs offer vocabulary development as well as reading comprehension and strategies for our students. Our students are always engaged in this program because there is time to do oral and written expressions. I know our students usually struggle with written expressions, so that is our main focus at Melridge this year, as well as being able to communicate and pronounce words correctly. Our services at Melridge, we have seen that students have become more confident within their classrooms. They're able to participate in class. They feel confident raising their hand. They feel confident asking questions and working within groups. We've seen how well this has helped. The programs itself are built for the students to collaborate in small group, and they take that with them and they do it in their general classroom as well. So they're actually growing in their classroom. We've seen such a great growth with them.
And one of the really great things about having Mrs. Gutierrez on board is that she was a 4th grade general ed teacher previously in another district. So that really helps her to know what the kids need to know to be successful in the classroom. So that's a huge asset.
Yes.
Not to mention that she speaks Spanish, which is
Yes.
very, very
So,
helpful as well.
I was also like a former ELD student as well. So I know what these students go through. I understand their struggles in the classroom, how important it is to build vocabulary, how important it is to feel confident, and I also work hand in hand with teachers to allow teachers to know like how to work with kids, especially with the newcomers, how to understand them, and just give them that welcoming and environment that they need in the classroom.
And I would like to recognize Heather Kilfoyle too, who's our coordinator for English language services in the district and provides a lot of support, especially when we have someone new coming on and helps us to get everybody on board and set up for the year. So thank you for all of that.
It helps to have good staff and great teachers at every building.
So the most exciting part of our presentation, we have some students who are English language learners, some who have been at Melridge since they were in kindergarten, others who are newer this year. So if you guys want to come on down. They're going to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about them. Come on, D'Angelo. Come on, Isabella. D'Angelo really wants to meet Dr. Bettino. He's very interested in who my boss is. Okay, so how about if we make like a line across here, and then we're gonna talk really loud and tell everybody what your name is, what grade you're in, and then anything else you wanna tell, like what language you speak, or what languages you speak, or, you know, if you like painting, or anything like that, okay? All right, Juliet, how about if you start?
Hi, my name is Julia. I am in second grade. I'm in Spanish and English.
My name is DJ. I am a fourth grader at Melridge, and my parents were born in Mexico, and I speak Spanish.
My name is Genya, and I'm from Ukraine, and I'm in fourth grade, and I also do horse riding. Hello, my name is Isabella. I speak Spanish and English. My parents were born in Mexico, and I like to paint.
Hi, my name is Joe. I'm in third grade in Melridge Elementary, and I speak Spanish and English. Hi, my name is Osmar. I speak Spanish, and my favorite thing to do is draw.
Very good. I have to brag about this group. We have some of the nicest kids at Melridge in this group. We just, a couple of weeks ago, we did our September Kindness Award winner. So raise your hand if you won a kindness award. Wow. So out of, and Osmar, is your hand up? Yeah. So, and then Jenya was also selected this week to be on the Student Leadership Committee. So
Wow.
this is a super, very nice group of kids. All of our students are very nice. So we really wanted to recognize them. These guys have to work doubly hard to do all of their schoolwork and learn the language. So
They truly come to the classroom ready to learn. They ask questions. They want to participate. They are just eager to learn. With me in small group, as well as like in their general ed classroom, they're just, honestly, we couldn't be more proud of them than what they're doing, because all the hard work, they're doing all the hard work. So yes, we're very proud of them.
So excellent job.
Group photo.
We're going to switch it
All right, 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you.
You know that Dr. Latino is the guy who calls snow days? Make sure you
Do you want to give me my phone number and you can call him? Okay, we'll talk later. All right, thank you. Next up, we have Mrs. Gifford, our Nutrition Services Director, who's going to give us the annual Nutrition Services update and report for board policy.
It's really small. I'm not nearly as exciting as students who speak multiple languages, so I apologize. School food service is a tough act to follow.
It is the toughest act to follow.
It is, yeah. So the first slide is boring. This is what we have to do every year. Per state law, I have to go over our board policy, which basically just states that we will comply with federal and state regulations regarding the school food service program. And that includes things like the appropriate claiming of reimbursable meals, making sure that if it is claimed as a reimbursable meal, it truly is, which simply means it has to have so many components in the meal, and one of them has to be a fruit or vegetable. Following Smart Snack guidelines, this is a tough one in school because it guides what items are permitted to be sold during the school day, and that includes fundraisers. So I would be the Mally's chocolate candy bar Gestapo in the hallway. You can sell them to adults, they just can't sell them to students, unfortunately. Making sure there's a properly trained and certified staff member in each kitchen where meals are being prepared. All of our managers, some assistant cooks, and myself, we are ServSafe certified by the Lake County General Health District in the state of Ohio. We work with families of students who have meal restrictions, allergies, to make reasonable accommodations while staying within those required meal pattern requirements, and managing food, supply, and labor costs to keep our program operating independently, which we do every year. Our kitchens serve approximately 40,000 lunches and 15,000 breakfasts each month out of our 7 kitchens here and the 2 in Fairport. This year, Fairport did qualify to become a CEP district, which means all of their students are eating at no cost this year. Their meal participation has gone up about 50% from this time last year, which ultimately just helps my bottom line. We bring in revenue from state and federal reimbursement, meal and a la carte sales, catering, and the bistro and Lamouth Coffee Cart, which are run by students in our special education department. Our total revenue for last year was a whopping $2.2 million. That is not my balance, but that is what we brought in. Our nutrition staff is required to have several hours of continuing education training based on their position. So I am required to have 15 hours each year of some sort of training, whether that's, food training, human resources, food and sanitation. Managers are required to have 10 hours, and full-time staff need 6 hours, while part-time staff need 4. And we do get several hours at our annual back-to-school meeting. These are just a couple pictures. We did have someone come in and talk about menu planning, which was a big focus this year for our back-to-school meeting. And we had Jamel White come in and give a little motivational talk to the staff, which was something different, and they appreciated that. Improvements and updates in our department. I was able to provide new uniforms for all of our staff this year. We transitioned into scrubs that say nutrition services on them, so everyone looks more uniform, they're more comfortable. We got new coolers at the high school. The ones there were very old. They didn't have doors, so they would break frequently and not stay at temperature. We received a grant for 3 immersion blenders from the American Dairy Association to make smoothies for breakfast. So we do that at John R., Lamouth, and at the Fairport Harding High School. And then I also purchased additional freezer and warmers at Fairport to allow for more storage due to the fact that they have more students eating. That is the Riverview staff up there, by the way, in their matching scrubs. Couple menu facts. We utilize the Healthy Pro menu planning software for our menus. They are online and accessible through the district website and on the lunch page. They're separated by grade level and meal service, so you could choose Buck Elementary breakfast or lunch for each building. The software ensures that we are compliant with calories, sodium, fat, all the things that we have to be compliant in for a week. Parents can filter the menu by allergens. So if your child has a peanut allergy or a strawberry allergy or whatever it may be, you can filter that on the menu, and so it will remove all of the items that your child can't have based on the menu. And all nutrient information and carb counts are accessible for parents and health aides in the district. Why did that not go? And what's upcoming, we have new sugar restrictions for breakfast effective next school year. Of course, they are lower sugar restrictions. So currently, we have to have less than 14% added sugar on our breakfast menu, and next year it's going down to 10%. We have already begun making some menu changes to be proactive for that. And I will also be getting ready for an administrative and procurement review the following year for the 26-27 school year. And these are just a couple items we transitioned into this year. That is a banana split breakfast item. It's yogurt. It's definitely not ice cream. Blueberries, strawberries, granola. It was a very popular item last year. We brought it out during National School Breakfast Week. And then that is Parkside staff during National School Breakfast Week in the middle. And then just last week, Doris Sullivan is the manager at Lamouth Middle School, and she's always game for trying new and exciting things, and she did a ramen bowl bar for the students, so it was very well received.
That was good.
It was very good.
Yeah, let me know when that's coming.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next is Mrs. Lanning, who's going to give an update, the annual required update on student wellness and success funds.
Okay, so as Dr. Rutino indicated, we are required every year to make the board aware and the public of how we're spending our, oops, wrong way, sorry about that. Student wellness and success funding that we receive from the state. This year, for fiscal year 2025, the district will receive approximately $184,638.70 in funding. We have, well, there's some fluctuations there, right,
It
Gary?
gets recalculated 24 times throughout the year, so the number changes.
That's why the approximately.
That didn't seem like an approximate number.
That number's
That
not
came from
approximate,
Gary.
it'll change 23 more times.
The funding that we have decided in the district to use the funding primarily to support our school-based mental health counseling services, which we contract directly through Signature Health. I wanted to give a little bit more information about how these services are staffed, and that includes Signature Health provides us with licensed counselors and social workers that conduct school-based services. We have, this year, we have full-time licensed counselors at Buckeye, Melridge, Parkside, Riverview, and Lamouth. We also have 2 full-time licensed counselors at the Riverside campus. And then we are, Signature Health is in the process, per our request, of hiring a floating counselor that will kind of float throughout the district to attend to any caseload overflows or crisis situations that we might have in the district. We do have a specific referral process. Signature Health counseling services are only provided when requested by the school. Referrals are sent directly through either the administrator, school counselor, or through the school psychologist. A parent can call in and request services for their students, but they do have to be streamlined through the school referral process. And then I wanted to give an update. This is last year, but last year we provided, or Signature Health counselors provided services to over 312 students across the district. Services that are provided through the Signature Health counselors include diagnostic assessments, which help determine appropriate treatment courses, individual counseling or group counseling that target specific needs, student assistant programs. This could include staff training, student skill building groups, ongoing consultation, and even classroom presentations. They also provide case management that assists families with immediate needs and linkage to resources throughout the community. And then they can provide risk and safety assessments for us to determine if a student is in crisis or a threat to themselves. And then they also can participate in our district threat assessment team, on our district threat assessment teams, and assist in identifying students of concern, level of risk, and then appropriate intervention. And then I'd like to lastly end with why these services are important. Research in the United States and throughout the world has demonstrated a strong correlation between the mental health of children and adolescents and the educational success. Children who have mental health problems are more likely to have difficulty in school with academics, be more likely to be retained, have more social emotional difficulties, and then also are more at risk for not graduating. Any questions?
You said that parents can make a referral.
Parents can call, and they typically would call into either the building principal, assistant principal, school, like here at the high school, it would be the school counselor, and then those referrals are processed to the Signature Health counselor, and then there is an intake process that also happens to determine whether or not they're going to open up and do take on that particular student for counseling. It's important to note that we do specifically provide services for things that are school-based related.
Okay.
So there's an impact that the student is having that is impacting school performance, socialization, etc.
Okay, and then of the 312 students that maybe were referred by a counselor, administrator, psychologist, then are the parents notified?
Oh, part of the intake process, you have to have parent permission.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of forms that have to be completed by the Signature Health staff.
Okay.
If a parent is not in agreement with counseling, then we do not provide that service.
Okay.
Signature Health would not take on that student for counseling. It's 312 plus because I only included those students that were directly served. I did not include, they can have some indirect, and for example, in a crisis situation, they can be indirectly involved. But I just included the information that was specific to direct services that were provided last year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? You're welcome.
Okay. And finally, Mr. Platko with a preview of the 5-year forecast, because 1 month is just not enough.
Yeah, but-
Just can't get right in.
I know everyone looks forward to the November 5-year forecast presentation, but based on some discussions we had in committee, we talked about this, seeing where we're at both for the general fund and PI fund. So knowing that we had some availability issues for maybe a future work session, I decided to try to put some information together tonight to present to the board. Just some high-level summary information. You know, obviously it's draft, so it's going to change, but just kind of give an idea of where we're at, what things look like going forward. So the first slide, typically you'll see this when I do the 5-year forecast presentation. It's a very short summary of the 5-year forecast, showing 3 years of actual data and then 5 years projected. You know, in my world right now, I'm in 2025. It's fiscal year 2025, so that's the first. It's the middle column, basically fiscal year 25, is the first year forecast of the current year that we're in. Last year we deficit spent slightly. It was pretty much a break even on a $53 million budget. You know, we pretty much broke even. Going forward, you know, we are deficit spending in the future, and the forecast assumes things are trending as is. You'll see it's not uncommon to see a negative cash balance in year 5 of the forecast. If you look at forecasts around different districts throughout the state, which you can pull from the Ohio Department of Education's website, that's not uncommon to see that. We won't end up there because we're going to make adjustments as we go and continue to update the forecast. And plus, you know, you tend to be somewhat conservative on your revenues and expenditures. You tend to be a little bit slightly lower what you project on your revenue, and a little bit higher on your expenses to be conservative, so there's no surprises. And you know, if your revenue comes in 1% higher and your expenditures come in 1% lower, that's $1 million a year, and you compound that for 5 years, that $9 million negative cash balance turns into a $4 million negative cash balance. So it can quickly change in those future years. It's kind of like your weather forecast. What's going to happen tomorrow, you kind of know what's going to happen a week from now. That forecast likely changes over time. So this is kind of based on current spending, and I will be tweaking some numbers as well because, for example, in the current fiscal year, and you don't see the details on this report, but I didn't factor in the science reading reimbursements. You'll see an increase in revenue and an increase in expenditures because they're stipends that we're paying for teachers. They're being reimbursed by the state, and I had not factored it into the forecast yet, but it's a net wash of zero with the numbers, with the revenue and expenditure numbers will change. And then after I worked on this a while, I found an error in our forecasting model in year 5 in 2029. I need to make a correction there, so that number's going to change as well. But you know, and I want to refine some more numbers because the forecast is due in November. So once we get through our books for October, we post the October 30th pay, gives you a little bit more data to continue those projections. And then also we have the renewal of the Lake County School Financing District on the ballot this November. If this forecast assumes that passes and continues on, if that does not pass, I will have to update the forecast in November, and that would be part of the final forecast that we would file with the Ohio Department of Education. And then looking at, we do have a cash balance policy that we implemented back in 2022 after a lot of work in committee, that we want to maintain a 90-day cash balance and at year end at a minimum. And a lot of that's due to the timing of cash flows. For example, we don't get a lot of state funding, which comes throughout the year, but we get large settlements for your tax settlements twice a year. So you want to maintain your cash flow. For us, jumps around. Where if you're a district like Painesville City, who's heavily state funded, they have more level cash flow because they're getting 24 payments throughout the year at a higher amount. So looking at just the draft that we have currently, you know, we're estimating 145-day cash balance in the current fiscal year, with 111 in 26 and then 62 in 27, which starts triggering that cash balance policy, and we need to start looking at things to do to help mitigate that going forward. We've already started with just looking at staffing levels as individuals retire. We're an organization of 600 employees, so we have retirements every year. We have people come, resign throughout the year. Do we replace those positions? Are they necessary? Can we make adjustments as we go and make adjustments to programs? So numbers will obviously change as we go, but this is a snapshot in time of where we're projecting as of now. There's been some discussion about possibly using funds from the general fund and transferring to either a permanent improvement fund or capital project fund for improvements. So I did another kind of just a draft real quick of what if we took our interest revenue and we transferred that out of the general fund and into a capital project fund, and how would that affect the forecast? As you can see, obviously, it's going to have a negative impact as far as we'll be getting to that below that 90-day cash balance sooner. So in 2027, we'll be looking at a 44-day cash balance based on current projections. Obviously, if our cash balance is declining, our interest revenue would be declining as well. So we've factored that in as well, and it makes the projection a little tricky on doing this. So this is kind of it was more of a point just to show how that will compound over time if we were to do that. The next slide just kind of shows we know we're going through this 6-year reappraisal for Lake County. We're about a 20% increase away from hitting the 20 mil floor. Once you hit the 20 mil floor, that increase in valuation will cause increases in people's tax bills on those voted levies. Inside millage will go up on tax bills as values go up, but the voted millage typically will reduce as values go up. But once you hit the 20 mil floor, which we will hit with the reappraisal, that will cause an increase in property tax revenue. And so if we were to take that money that we realize from that reappraisal and say, forget the interest idea, let's look at the reappraisal idea, what does that look like? This forecast, right now, I think the last I heard was Riverside District was about 29.6% increase. I think it was based on the last data I had. I know people are contesting values, so that could change, and we won't know what the final number is until the final number is. The current forecast, which I projected in May, was 28% increase, I believe. So that's about 2.6. So the difference between every percent, about another 300,000 in revenue. But if we were to just take that reappraisal money, which I didn't spell it out individually here, but it's included in the expenditures as a transfer out. When the new valuations go in, the tax bills go out in January, that's when we collect money. That's the second half of fiscal year 2025. So we really realize half of that increase in the current fiscal year, and then 2026 is the first year we receive the full increase because of the timing and difference between taxes are on calendar years and we're on fiscal years ending June 30th. So if we were to factor that into our expenditures, transferring those money out into capital projects fund, you can see, in 2027 we're at 23-day cash balance, which is obviously way below where we want to be. So I just kind of want to show those different scenarios, and obviously if we did both interest and reappraisal, obviously it'd be a much worse forecast than what these two versions are. Any questions on that before I move into the permanent improvement fund?
So you're still looking at approximately 3.6 million in additional, depending on
it's
people
probably going to be
contesting.
between 2.6 and 3.2 is probably where it's going to be, but every percentage matters, and until we truly know, it's tricky to evaluate, and also, there are delinquencies to factor in too. Will delinquencies go up and people not pay their bills as quickly as they do? It's kind of all unknown, but typically in our district, we have like a 99% collection rate typically, and I would anticipate that won't change much, but that's what we're projecting, but we won't know until we know.
So you're saying
we'll have a better idea probably in December when the county sends out what's called the Schedule A. It'll show our evaluation for 2025.
this December.
This December,
Okay.
and that'll give us a better idea.
But right now you're figuring how much?
We're now figuring a 28% increase, which is about 2.6 million
2.6?
2.6.
Oh, okay, because I thought it was more like 3.6.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it ends up being higher than 30 than it could be, so it's.
Okay,
once
so
you
we'll
get-
know in December.
Yeah, once you get on the
Okay.
20 mil floor, it doesn't take a whole lot to really make a material change to what that number could look like.
Okay,
So
thank
can
you.
I ask a question? In any event, regardless of this data, if the board wanted to transfer funds out of the general fund at any point in time, that would have to be approved at the table, but it would also, you can only do that for 1 year. You can't do it for multiple years because it's gonna be different boards that are,
You'd have to do it.
you'd have to do it annually.
Yeah,
So if folks are thinking that we're gonna pay for something out of general funds, you can't really commit to that because you're only gonna approve 1 year transfer,
right,
correct?
correct. Unless you did the improvement out of the general fund, but that would have to change our forecast because we don't project capital outlay in the forecast, but you could essentially do that out of the general fund as well. But the issue you have is, with the declining cash balance in the future, can we certify that and will that be an issue? So it gets a little tricky.
Right, okay, thank you.
I'll pass this out. So coming down across the board here is a permanent improvement fund, 5-year forecast. Those have been on the board for a while. I've seen this many variations in the past. And basically, it shows our permanent improvement fund, 5 years of history, the current fiscal year, and then 5 years of projections. And so I did an update to that because we haven't done one yet for this fiscal year, and we have a lot of projects going on. And so I put on the slides a couple snapshots from this. Just looking at historical data, well, for our revenue, what we receive from our property tax and also including our homestead reimbursements and manufactured homes, basically around 2.6 million a year is what we collect. FY24 was 2.7. We also, allocate interest based on cash balances. So you'll see, in fiscal year 23 and 24, interest rates went up significantly. So we collected $241,000 in 2023 and $409,000 in 2024. In those years, but you can see in prior years it was much less. But also wanted to show, in prior years we did a transfer based on the federal stimulus money we got called ESSER. We had recoded during that time teachers from the general fund to the ESSER funds that we were teaching remotely, which generated savings in the general fund. We transferred those savings to the permanent improvement fund to use for projects. So between fiscal year 21 and 22 was a total of $3 million between the two fiscal years, which is how we got to some of the cash balance we got. I skipped a line also, and there's a line for other items. So there's refunds of prior years, expenditures, donations, sale of assets. You'll see the 1 year was around 450-some thousand. That was the year that we were awarded the welding lab grant, but we already had done, they originally put out the grant, we applied for it. They ended up taking that grant away when COVID happened as part of the state budget cuts. We did the welding lab project anyways, and they came back the following year and said, hey, we'll fund that welding lab for you. And we're like, we already did the project. And they said, okay, we'll reimburse you. So that's why it got reimbursed to the permanent improvement fund. So that's kind of looking at some of the historical revenue. So going into revenue projections, and I'm not really covering, we started fiscal year 2025 with a $9 million cash balance, which is high for us, but 3.1 million of that was already encumbered and committed for different projects. The secure vestibule project we did this summer, the track replacement project, and then a bunch of various other things, cameras, servers, computers, things like that, that come out of this fund as well. So that was our beginning cash balance. We're projecting just shy of 2.7 million in the property tax revenue line, about 325,000 in interest to the permanent improvement fund. So we have a total revenue of $3 million for this year. And then seeing going forward around that 2.675, 2.7 million in revenue going forward that we continue from that, collecting from that fund. As valuations go up, this levy does not collect additional funds. It would stay pretty stagnant. So it's not like the general fund where we're on the 20 mil floor and we'd see an increase. This, we would not see an increase in funds from the reappraisal. It will stay relatively flat. And then I have interest revenue declining as a projection, even though my cash balance is increasing a little bit because interest rates are expected to drop, but then that number, depending on what projects we do and how things work out, will likely change. So the next
interest
slide,
revenue this year was 1.8, right?
the projected revenue for this year?
Well,
or-
yeah, I think it was this year.
It's 3 million total. It's 2.68 million in property tax revenue and 325,000 in interest and then a small donate or refund there. So it's about $3 million we're projecting for revenue in the permanent improvement fund.
Okay.
So the next slide, I know it's a lot of numbers on one page, but so what I do I kind of put up just to kind of show a point. So what I do is in the current fiscal year, I break out all the expenditures that we have on our permanent improvement fund. This includes everything that's either been expended or encumbered. So everything that's in our accounting system as of yesterday. So we can fully account for everything, even though some expenditures might have happened until a future year. I account for it now to be conservative so we don't overspend ourselves and overreach ourselves. So you can see, like, we have capital projects for different funds and vehicles, equipment, copier, different categories. If we factor everything that's already committed currently, it's $4.1 million. Part of that is, we still have outstanding payments and retainage for the vestibule project. We still owe more than half the amount due on the track, so those haven't been paid yet, but they're already reflected in these numbers for fiscal year '25. So I wanted to show all that in one place, but the current expenditures currently assume nothing else the rest of the fiscal year. So that will be in the next slide I'll show you here. But then going forward in future years, I'm putting aside money that we typically see based on historical trends. So we purchase Chromebooks each year and computers, so we average about 400,000 there. Some supplies with that. We have buses. I put in 4 buses a year. We may not be purchasing 4 buses a year, but I put a placeholder for that. We'll decide those as we go. And different security equipment, copiers, music, furniture, and things like that. So the next slide, which is the bottom of the forecast that I'm showing, now I'm accounting for everything that's currently not on our books, currently, just because we haven't issued a PO for it yet, or it's on tonight's agenda for approval, or something in progress, or something that to be determined. For example, we have the Riverside High School Career Tech Edition. It's a $2.5 million grant. We are looking at possibly adding additional funds to that. What that looks like, we haven't really decided that. I put in 1.5 million as a placeholder. That number will change. We don't know for sure. We're finalizing. Hopefully, we're close to a design, and then we look at what's that cost of that design, and then what else are we going to incorporate with that. Since we're going into the building, what do we do? Are we air conditioning a cafeteria or something like that? We're going to look at that and see what that looks like. That was just an example. We haven't made those decisions yet. We also need to purchase furniture for that, and I had a chance to talk to Dr. Malacher. I put around $200,000 for that. I'm not sure if that was close to the estimate for it. It might be higher, it might be low, I'm not sure. But we can tweak that number as we go.
I actually think you're pretty close.
And then we also have to do soil borings, surveys, and asbestos work on those areas we're touching outside the building. So it's about $50,000 we put there for that. The next big item is the addition at Riverview that was approved recently. I'm looking at financing that over a 20-year period. Riverview is a long-term asset of the district, and by financing it, allows us to maintain flexibility in our permanent improvement fund for other projects where if we pay cash for that and drain out our balance to, too low, we want to drain all of our cash at once. We want to have money set aside for future projects or emergencies as well. The architect fee, which is on tonight's agenda, is $325,000, so that's listed there. I put a furniture estimate of $400,000. I'm not sure if that's close or not. It probably is based on other furniture purchases we do. And then also, additional site work we'll have to do as far as surveys and geotech surveys and things that goes with that construction, and also some owner rep fees for that as well for $100,000. Then putting in bathroom stalls here at the high school is another $47,350. We have some fencing we're putting up at Parkside and Riverview around the detention ponds. We had a compressor here that needed replaced at the central office. Some floor scrubbers that we're purchasing as well. And then we talked about in the finance committee, musical instrument replacement for the band. The overall cost of that was around 290-some thousand if we were to buy it all at once, but we're looking at spreading that over a 3-year period. So I projected 100,000 there. At finance, or at the buildings and grounds committee, we talked about Lamouth bathroom renovations. We haven't made any decision on that, but I decided to just put it in here as a placeholder to see if we did that, around 500,000. I think the estimate was 400,000, but I wasn't sure if that included architect fees and asbestos and things like that, so I just rounded it up to 500,000 for a placeholder. We're also looking at a Department of Development grant through the state of Ohio for energy efficiency for lighting project, and we talked about this in the finance committee. If we were to move forward with this grant, we would have to match dollar for dollar for what we get. The minimum grant is 250,000, so then we'd have to put in 250,000. We're looking at LED lighting at Lamouth and here at the campus. If we decide to apply for that grant, we haven't made the decision, but I put a placeholder there because our match would be for 250,000. We also have instructional materials for grades 3 through 5 and 6 through 8, science reading, and I think is it all science reading? I just put placeholders in for now, 250,000 for each grade band based on the wit and wisdom purchase we did recently.
3 through 5 that we have to do, correct?
And then lastly is a placeholder for, it's 750,000. This is for fiscal year 2025 expenditures to be determined. So if you remember, up above, I'm only accounting for things that are already on the books. We're going to continue to have purchases throughout the year. We purchase things out of the permanent improvement fund under 15,000 that don't come to the board, where computers or a server or things like that will happen throughout the year. Plus, there'll be various projects that come up. We get around to the springtime, we'll be determining summer projects. There'll be a Chromebook purchase in there for the summer. So I kind of put a placeholder of 750,000 there for that, not knowing what that's going to be.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Where's our annual Chromebook? We're always some Chromebooks.
It is reflected above.
Like, it's not on the top. Where is it?
This is where it's tricky because it's on the first page. There's a 400,000 in the future years. So it's projected in future years, but the current year column is only what's already on the books. So we are projecting in future years. And this current year projection will be part of that.
It's part in the 750.
It's part of that 750.
Okay. Just
So I know
wanted
it
to
gets a
make sure it was
little.
on there. It's like, we haven't forgotten.
I haven't
have
lost
we?
you by now. I'll keep trying.
Yeah. And the lighting, you mentioned campus in Lamouth. Where are we with Buckeye and Melridge with lighting?
Well, part of the grant was we had to have a study done, an energy
that's
efficiency
right.
study, and there was a cost to that.
Yeah.
And we weren't sure we wanted to spend to have that done,
Yeah.
and then not knowing the future of those buildings, we thought Lamouth and
I see.
the campus were
Okay.
a safer bet. Obviously, we can certainly look into
Okay.
that for the other schools, but as far as for the grant purposes, that's what we were looking at.
Okay.
And then I have one more question. So your proposal is that we do the Riverview edition with 20-year COPS grant, or 20-year COPS funding.
Right.
What does that do to our capacity to borrow for other projects if we decide that that's the route we want to take to do other projects?
Right. And it's a relatively smaller borrowing compared to other things that we've proposed in the past. So, I mean, it wouldn't have any significant hindrance, but obviously it's a consideration. Being that it's such a smaller amount, it shouldn't affect our bond rating or anything like that, but it would obviously lower our capacity for the future, but our capacity could be pretty, it kind of depends on what we do. If we're doing a bond issue to build something in the future by levy, it really wouldn't have much of an effect on that, but if we're only borrowing from ourselves in the future, obviously there's going to be limitations on how much we can.
Are we allowed to pay that back early?
We can. We'll have to talk to our municipal advisor on our
Right.
options and what that looks like, because sometimes you can build in a call date after 5 or 7 years and say, okay, I want to pay it off at that point.
So it really is like a commercial paper?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so when you factor all those items in currently, about $5.2 million, leaves us with an ending projected cash balance of $2.6 million in the general fund, or in the permanent improvement fund. Now, one of the things to note, I'm projecting all these things in the current fiscal year as to be conservative, and it's just easier to see where you truly stand. Obviously, like the Career Tech edition or the Riverview edition, those expenditures are gonna fall into next fiscal year, because it's not gonna be done, billed, paid by June 30th. So those are gonna shift over to the next column, you know, some of these items as well. So you'll end up with a much higher cash balance per se, but it's gonna be committed already for different projects.
And we haven't, as a board, committed to $1.75 million for the CTE project. That's just a placeholder.
That's just a placeholder, correct? Based on my best estimate, which,
Right.
you know, we're not even done with the design of the addition yet, didn't even know what we're gonna put in extra or maybe not put in extra. So we had talked about up to 2.5 million at one point. I don't think it's gonna be anywhere near that, to be quite honest, just based on what we're looking at potentially building. But we'll obviously continue to update this as we go. So one of the last things I put at the bottom, that you'll see in yellow, so I put, you know, we have a minimum cash balance policy for the general fund. We don't necessarily have one for the permanent improvement fund. So I just picked 1.5 million, which is about half of our revenue for this year, to say, okay, we want to carry over that kind of cash uncommitted for emergencies or unforeseen things, like we need a boiler, we need to replace a roof or something like that, so we're not draining too low. So that's the bottom number, saying, okay, we're going to maintain a $1.5 million cash balance. What's left to utilize? So that line in yellow is kind of like what we could spend in addition this year to maintain that 1.5. So if all these things happened exactly the way I projected, we have about 1.1 million left this fiscal year if we wanted to do other projects. But a lot of times you get the question, you know, can we afford it? And it's one of those things you can afford. Yes, you can, but you can't afford everything, and so you got to make those choices on what you can afford today and what you can put off for the future. In those projections also as well, in fiscal year 2028, I did put the turf replacement. We're still waiting for a number on that, what that truly would look like, but I right now it takes over 800,000. So for example, if things were to happen exactly like this, in fiscal year 28, there'd only be 50,000 left if we just bought the turf, you know, replace the turf at that cost, a one-time expenditure.
And it doesn't make any difference whether or not we start setting some money aside for that now or pay it then. You're still gonna have the same amount of money left over.
Right, it's just when you,
At
how you
the end of
manage your
28.
cash flow per se.
Yeah, okay.
So,
And then that also does not factor in any type of sponsorship opportunity we would get
Right.
as well, because we
Yeah.
don't have that.
Well, we talked about, it might cost up to $1 million, so 800,000 seems reasonable considering we already have some funds set aside for that
correct.
in the cell tower
We have a
fund.
turf replacement fund that we
Right.
deposit our cell tower revenue to.
And of course, that's without a partnership, right?
Correct.
So UH last time they partnered, if they partnered again, that would substantially go down.
Right. So I wanted to present that, just to kind of show, and obviously these are my projections based on what information I had. I did share it with Dr. Rattino and a few others just to see, am I missing something big that we've talked about? And I think we have everything covered as far as what we've discussed, even though some things haven't been decided, but we at least account for it to see, you know, can we afford it, what does it look like? And obviously, we're going to continue to adjust things as we know more.
This is really valuable to have in our back pocket, I think, is to continue to do this, and as we do the 5-year forecast, continue to maintain this document. I think it's important that we have it. Thank you.
That concludes special reports.
All right, that brings us to old business. We did have a few items. Ms. Grassi, you had board handbook?
Yes, so I would like to schedule a policy committee meeting perhaps before we leave this evening so that we can have something in hand before the end of December so that we can vote on something and have something approved by the end of the year.
Yeah, and Neola finally released the policy updates this past week, so we finally have those that typically come out in August.
Okay,
So-
great. So if we can do that, that would be wonderful. We had some information on updating the handbook for committee purposes and functions. And then I had some information that I thought might be helpful for any future board members. The OSBA guidance sheets on a variety of topics would be helpful maybe to put in the back. So if we can, I'll start looking at that and pulling together the information that we had all provided earlier. And then if we can get a meeting on the agenda, that would be great.
Do you want to talk about it afterwards, or do you want to try to do?
When our policy is going to be ready for us to
It'll be
review?
emerged right now.
I
So,
don't like.
I mean, hopefully sooner than later. We have a meeting with Ed Holland just to go over them, but he's in the process of merging them with our current policies right now.
Okay, so let's do the end of October. Can we do it early in November, maybe?
If they're ready, you'll have it.
Ready?
As soon as they're ready, I'll have them shared with you.
Okay.
We're meeting with Ed Holland
I'll
on
be
the
on the
14th,
second to the 6th.
Right.
do those.
This may need to
Can we do it
be-
between the 16th and Thanksgiving then? Let's figure something
Monday,
out.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
That'll be fine with me.
We'll have the policies after reviewed probably on the 15th, as part of the Friday packet on the 15th.
Yeah, we have a
Because-
board meeting
yeah,
on the
because I'll be gone after
21st.
Thanksgiving.
Monday's the 18th.
Are you in?
Mhm.
Do you think they'll have them by the 18th?
Oh, I would assume so.
Yeah,
We should.
Ed will have it done before we meet on the 14th.
That's not the day we have a buildings and grounds
No,
meeting,
that's
is it?
Tuesday.
Oh, so we'll be together twice.
We'll be together Monday and
And
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Can we do it the 18th?
18th at 7:30?
7:30?
7:30?
Okey-dokey. Thank you.
So that's a full meeting,
No.
That's
The
just a
committee
policy
meeting.
committee.
just policy committee.
Yep.
No,
That'd be
so
helpful.
okay. Just policy.
Perfect.
Any other discussion on that? One of the other pieces of old business was just around the committee meetings and liaison positions. I included policy 0155, just to remind everybody that the committees are not a decision-making position, that they are just for discussion with the administration and guidance and to provide input. I just wanted to remind us all of that as we, continue forward with our committee meetings. Any other discussion on that? All right.
Yeah, just to clarify for everyone to what Ms. Kerniski is saying, what it says in 0155 is that each board committee shall be convened by a chairperson who shall report to the committee. So what happens is you have two board members in any of the committee meetings, and decisions are not made to spend money or move forward with a program. It's discussed and can be generally agreed, but it always has to come to the board agenda for a vote. So just wanted to add that.
All right. Ms. Grassi, I think you had board communications and email?
Yes, I wanted to have a conversation around the email communications that are being proposed to go out again this month. Last month, we had decided that that was going to be a one-time, and then we were going to have some conversations surrounding what those would look like and how input would be made and how we would have input available to the board. And we have a resolution on the board agenda this evening that doesn't include that yet again, and so I would just like to have some conversation around that. Is anyone going to vet those communications? Is anybody going to review those before they're sent out to the community? If there are those of us who choose to want to at least have some input into what those things say prior to being sent out? I mean, is there any process for this? We haven't had that conversation at the board
Well,
table.
we had it with our board attorney, Dan McIntyre, and he said we cannot interact with each other, that he suggested one person be appointed. And so the other board members, just like when you did the superintendent and treasurer reviews, the information from each board member was emailed to you, and then you put it together. So that would be the same process, otherwise we're breaking the Sunshine Law and the Open Meetings Act. And our attorney, who's not here tonight, sat right there and said that's the only way we can do it.
Well, he didn't say it was the only way. He said we can't break the sunshine law, which I agree with.
Right.
There are other ways to do it, by putting a process in place where we discuss it in a working session, we put together what's gonna go into it, and we start saying, hey, we're gonna send one every month. Like, there is a process that we can put into place that won't break the sunshine law. So I think your statement's a little inaccurate, that that's the only way we can do it, because that's not a true statement.
Well, let me refine that by saying that the only way we can do it in a timely fashion, like this one will be appointed for Monday if it passes, And that'll give everyone time up till Sunday night to forward any thoughts or ideas by email that could be put into there. But if we start having meetings, and one small item is I'm out of town from the 2nd till the 16th, then the information's gonna be old before it gets out, and people that have responded to me about what they had received, they liked it, and they're looking forward to receiving more. And so I know that this is right now on the agenda as a monthly thing, but it may want to be, we may want to make it a policy. I know the board in the past has not done this, but I think it's important to communicate with the community. And I know we have the pipeline. Nick does a great job and communicates with people. More communication is usually not bad. It's usually a good thing. And even if we cover topics 2 or 3 times and people get repeated information, it's still better because they're going to be receiving other information. So ideally, I think we would turn this into a policy. We're going to have a policy meeting, and we'll see if we can create a policy to that effect, and we'll see what the future looks like. But my goal is to certainly communicate with the district because at least the feedback I've gotten from this one was very positive.
I don't think we received all positive feedback on it, so my concern is not about providing what I want to see in it. My concern is about reading it before it goes out because I don't believe it reflects the entire board atmosphere. So I just, I'm not concerned without getting input. I'm concerned about seeing it before it goes out because my name's on it, the Board of Education's name's on it, and I don't think that one person has the entire board's interest in mind.
I would also like to say that as well. If we can get Neola to provide us with some sample policy on that, if they have any, I don't know if they do. Perhaps we could look at that, but I believe that it has to have a process that goes along with it, not just one board member creates an email and it just goes out to the district without anybody seeing it. I personally don't want my name on something I haven't seen, and I'm just letting the public know and the people that are sitting at this board table that nobody has the authority to use my name without my consent, having looked at something, and so I don't want my name on that. I don't want my name on something I haven't seen. I don't know how else to say that. Like, if we don't get the opportunity to look at something before it goes out, I don't want my name on it.
Well,
Well,
one of the,
your name is not on it.
Yeah, my name was on
It
it.
comes from the board.
No, my name was on it.
Okay.
I have the
So-
letter. My name was on it. I put my name on it.
Yeah, so we can certainly make it just from the board without individual names,
Yeah.
and that'll be okay.
and I wanted to make sure we had a bigger window this time so that people can submit information.
You guys aren't listening. It's not about submitting information.
Okay.
It's about seeing it before it goes out so we have a chance to understand what's being put out to the community.
I also want to know that somebody on the administrative team and our attorney is vetting it for accuracy. There were inaccurate statements in the letter that went out. It was not accurate.
Well, it was my understanding that the letter was read and kind of edited a little bit, just a few things by Nick, our communications person, before anything was sent. But, you know, it's supposed to report what was approved or what business was done at this board meeting, for example. And once we vote on something, the board has spoken.
But we did not vote on a timeline for Riverview that was in there. We did not vote on some of the information that was released. That was not voted on. So there was more information in that email that went out than what was voted on. And we never agreed on what the objective of the letter was. So I don't know where that came from either.
Well, it came from our board attorney, Dan McIntyre.
Dan's
So
not a decision maker.
He directed that this is how this should be handled, so that's exactly how he
No,
handled it.
I don't think that is exactly what you said.
Correct.
Again, I don't want my name on it, not at all. I don't condone it. We need to have a process that goes along with it, not just an email that goes out. I don't believe that if we prepare that information on Monday morning and it's gonna go out Monday, that we have an opportunity to actually look at it. And in deference to Nick, he writes great stuff, but, you know, Chris Rotino is his boss, not the Board of Education. And I'm quite certain that that puts people in a predicament when you have board members directing employees to do things and they want to keep their job and so they do it. That's wrong. I'm just gonna stand up and say that is wrong. Wrong. To do that to employees and put them in a position, that's just wrong.
So I think the question is, again, are we willing to sit down? We can do a working session, whatever we want, to figure out what does the process look like. I don't think anybody's against the board communication. I think it's the process that we want in place.
And we haven't agreed to a process yet, so I believe before we do it again, it warrants further conversation at some work session or something where we can actually have conversation about what that process looks like.
Well, I think we need to communicate with the district on a regular basis, and so I think this is very important, and I don't think it should be delayed or slowed down.
So then let's have a work session
And
to discuss
so-
it.
And so we are obviously looking at communicating so people know what's going on. I've been on the board almost 3 years, and the board has not done this. My guess is for the last 15 years, this has not been done, and I think the people deserve to be communicated with.
And no one's
so-
disagreeing with that.
and
You're
so-
not listening.
But it's current information. Once this board meeting is over, and if an email doesn't go out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we're into another board meeting.
So
And
I'm
and
just
so
gonna,
it's just not feasible to slow the whole process down.
I'm just gonna reference this letter that went out on October 9th. We talked about, in this letter, we, as a collective board with my name on it, say that we actually talked about like all these things at our last board meeting. I don't believe that we did. Part of this letter said that we were gonna have work sessions that talked about Buckeye and Melridge and the concerns they have at those buildings, but that's not what the facility meetings were intended to be for. Dr. Rattino led those sessions to, I thought, great success. But that's not what they were for, and that's not what we, as a collective board, communicated in this letter. So we gave people false impression of what those meetings were going to be about, which, again, nobody vetted it. Dr. Rattino was out of the district at the time, so he didn't have a chance to review it. He was at a training workshop. So I just don't believe it's reflective.
Well, we did talk about, at the board table, about the Riverview edition back on September 3rd, and then in the buildings and grounds, we've been over that again, and you even admitted that you received the rendering in the buildings and grounds meeting. You claimed you didn't discuss it, but it was discussed there as it was handed out. And on September 3rd, if you want to go back and look at the video, it was discussed there. So it absolutely is true. As far as terming something a work session or whatever else it might be when the board is present and the administration is present and people from the community are present, I think that's really slicing kind of thinly.
So again, I think the question is, are we willing to put a work session on the calendar so we can figure out how this board communication will work? Again, nobody is disagreeing with the board communication or communicating with the public. I feel the district does a great job of doing that anyways, but if it needs to come from the board, that's fine, but we need to figure out how we're gonna do this. So I think we need a working session. Is anybody against that?
Well, I know I don't have time because I'm going to be out of town next week and I'm
Yeah.
not going to have time to
I
meet.
think that we really, like you asked about.
Excuse me, I need the public to please let the board have a discussion. Excuse me,
I hope so,
please.
please, like, I'm worried about you.
You asked about some sample information from Neola, if there's any other policy about that. We could take a look at it, but I don't want to stop the process of communicating.
So we can't have, again, my question is, can we set up a work session to figure out what this process looks like?
I'm all for it.
We can set one up for the next board meeting.
So let's take a
It's
look
just-
at it,
It's
and
just I'm running out of time for this one, so this one I would suggest would move forward.
again, without anybody from the board seeing it before it goes out. Again, I'm gonna protest to that, but obviously there's 3 on this board that won't, so we will just probably move forward. We have a meeting on the calendar anyways for
November 7th.
November 7th. Can we use that work session to discuss this?
I can't.
Well, what date can you do, Mrs.
I'm finding
Brewster?
out tomorrow about some surgery.
Well, is there any other date that you can do?
I don't know until I meet with my doctor.
Well, then I would suggest we continue to move forward and just use November 7th. We already have this placeholder on our agenda. We can't please everybody, I guess. I mean,
Mr. Fischel said he was out of town the 2nd to the 16th, so that's not gonna work, so
No.
we could just do it 5 PM before the next regular meeting. Do that before the,
That is-
Well, I don't
That
want
would-
to hold up progress. So
Well-
again, communication's going out from the board, which
Do we have to
includes
vote
me.
on this?
We are voting on the communication at the end of the agenda.
I would hope that we would have this conversation before our next
Yes.
board meeting, because the next board meeting, we're gonna have another agenda item then that's gonna say that Mr. Fischel is gonna prepare another email. And I don't want another agenda item on another board meeting agenda until we have this process in place.
So is there a night next week, the week of the 26th, that we can meet for a work session? I don't know that the administration, I think if this is the only topic, the board can meet. I mean, we'll need you to help us get started, Gary, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Look, I do not have any time next week.
And I'm not gonna know.
Okay.
until
I am
tomorrow.
available as soon as I get back in town.
Can we do it in the morning?
I can do mornings. I can do evenings. I can do pretty much anything most of the time.
Can do morning meeting.
I can't. My work schedule is absolutely insane right now.
I think we need some information that you asked for with Neola, and,
That information doesn't matter. We're asking to put together a process.
but.
That's what we're asking for.
I would-
And we
So
could
even
have
if there's a
Neola, we could have a
procedure.
sample Neola policy.
Yeah.
If they have one, we could have it, and we could have it at that work session.
If
And we could-
Neola has a policy, they will provide us a copy of that. If they don't, that's something we have to write
Right.
ourselves with our district attorney.
Correct.
Yeah,
Right, they have standard policies for all types of topics that we may not cover in our own policies. And if you ask them for a topic, they can pull one out of their,
In archive of
In
our-
our-
And we can always create our own policy, right?
I'm in
Yes.
Florida
So-
through Wednesday.
So we will mark, since nobody else can meet this coming week, we will put it on when's the November 21st? Is that the next one?
Yeah, the
Right, or maybe
21st.
5 o'clock?
That is that's the play. That's the senior play. That's the first.
Oh, is that the
which is
senior
why
dinner?
That meeting's at 7 on the 21st. We moved that back.
Are we losing that? That was true, we were officially moving
We
that.
did, that was from Friday back.
That means it's
Would
not-
move to 7. So,
The 21st is 7 o'clock?
It's a 7 o'clock start for that meeting, yes.
Gary, you need to update the meeting.
I will update.
Yeah, I do apologize. It was out of the Friday packet.
Yeah, I remember you saying it.
You can always have your work session at 6, knowing that Dr. Rutino is play.
I'm playing
At
dad.
7, we start the regular meeting.
It's a good thing to play.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
All right, so work session at 6 o'clock on the 21st.
so we're not going to play, or we're not, I'm a senior,
I-
I go to that senior dinner.
When
Dinner's at
are we gonna
4.
do a work session? I guess we don't want to keep putting it off.
I don't think we should conflict with major events in the,
Well, when do you
Well,
want
then
to do
you
the work
choose.
session then? That's what I'm asking.
What about November 18th in the evening? That's a Monday.
I already have plans that day.
and that was one of my open days if I didn't have the other thing. What about the 20th?
Let's just, we can do the 21st after. Again, every time we meet, we are, again, there's a cost associated with it. If we have a meeting on the 21st, I don't see why we shouldn't just try to make that date work for everybody. So if we cannot meet at 6 PM, we can stick around afterwards and decide what that process looks like. Is that okay?
I would be fine with staying afterwards. I just don't want to.
Can we get an agreement at least that we're gonna walk away with the process and follow it instead of putting out another board communication without everybody agreeing to the process?
You know, there's 5 members on the board, and not everyone is always going to be voting 5-0.
I don't think we
So
are.
to predetermine that we're going to get something done.
Why can't
and
we
how do know we're gonna
collaborate and
get-
work together?
How do we know we're going to get
How
something
come we
done?
cannot collaborate and work together and come up with a solution?
So we already have a solution to
No.
communicate with the public.
And
So if
it
you're
sends out
looking-
inaccurate information.
So if you're looking for a different solution, we're going to meet and discuss it.
Yes,
Okay,
Okay.
that is the whole point.
Yes.
all right, we will meet after the board meeting on the 21st.
All right, so to clarify, the board meeting on 21st, we're gonna start at 7.
Yep.
And we'll have a work session at the end of the agenda to discuss this.
Yeah, again,
Wanna
if it's
check it
just
out.
that's the only item, then the administration doesn't have to stick around, we won't keep you. Yeah. Except Dr. Malacco, we might need her. I'm kidding. All right.
Since that's already a regular meeting, the notice, it'd still be just an agenda item on the regular meeting. It wouldn't necessarily be a separate meeting per se, or a separate work session to be part of the agenda. So I just wanted to clarify that.
All right. Ms. Grassi, I think you had facilities plan update?
Yes, I just wanted to know what the status of the district-wide critical repairs were from the Bioloski report and how we're going to be working those into our 5-year forecast and our PI forecast that we prepared. Those are things that we're going to have a conversation around, and status of work we need at Buckeye and Melridge regardless of the facility plan process. I know that your 5-year PI fund has some room in there for projects, but I'm not sure how much funding is going to be available for continued borrowing, and when we're going to have that conversation about, okay, so how much money do we want to spend? How soon do we want to spend it? Do we need to go out to the public and ask for dollars to do any of these projects? Or, you know, I'm concerned about the conversation around taking money from our general fund. This board has long stood for trying to maintain our funding and maintain what we do in the general fund and being able to continue to provide the educational opportunities without going into deficit. Well, I mean, we're gonna deficit spend, but to be able to maintain what we do in this district without having to go back and ask for additional dollars, we're very cognizant of that. I want people to know that. And so I think we have to have some conversation at some point surrounding those requests. We can move money from the general fund. I'm not a fan of that. I want to go on record as saying that right now. Again, that was one of the things, that even when, like long ago when Mr. Hack was on the board, and we made a really, really concerted effort to say that we wanted the treasurer's office and our finance team to make sure that our 5-year forecasts continued to maintain what we do, but maintain our levy status so that we didn't have to go to the public. And that was, I think, one of the goals. It's always a goal on the evaluation, right, is to maintain our funding so that we can continue to provide services without having to ask for additional dollars. So I want to make sure that we have that conversation.
So I can give a little bit of an update. I am working with, I'm finalizing the feedback that we got from Thursday night, making sure we give people ample time to provide any feedback in that form. And my hope is to have a draft of the facilities plan to the board by the end of next week, making sure that it's kind of tweaked through all of our administration that kind of jives with the 5-year PI forecast and kind of where we're at with the 5-year forecast as well. So that's the goal, is to have that out by the end of next week in draft form to the board. And then a presentation, I wouldn't recommend it on the 21st, but maybe another meeting closely after that, either a work session or at the December meeting, which is, I think, 2 weeks later anyway, to actually present formally to the public what the facilities plan is after board feedback from that and kind of moving forward.
Right. Just so that I am understanding, the 5-year forecast is not going to currently contain any transfers of funds to any other fund at this time.
Correct, that was what I was planning on doing with the general fund, 5-year forecast, was
Not moving anything. Thank you.
I think the big unknown in all of this is the status of the joint financing committee, and where that is. That even impacts, the potential of what we do moving forward. So it's kind of something that we're really looking at. The plan is standalone from that, and it does move forward. And even in looking at where we were with some of that stuff, we've done a lot of work this summer, and as you reflect back on some of the projects we've done and tying in some of the items in the Bioloski report, we've done a lot of that kind of, we are chipping away at the report. Now it's not, it was a huge ask from the entire report, but along the way as we've done some things, one of the things, critical repairs at Buckeye and Mars were replacement of all the doors. Those were done this summer with the new secure vestibule, so making kind of that movement. We've done some doors here kind of as we can. There's another agenda item for the doors. that are up there. So I think those are things that we've worked forward to really move. Some of the environmental, like asbestos work, when we were at Lamuth and putting the new floor in, that took care of some of that. So when you look at a lot of the things that we've done along the way in these projects, we've tried to incorporate where we could, a lot of these critical items in the Biological report. And I think that's, as we continue to move forward with even the CTE edition, the more we can do and kind of suck into that as part of those, why we have contractors on site, work that into it as well, kind of a timing fashion and all that. So really kind of think that it's a good, it's a good plan, kind of making sure that it reads right, that it kind of sounds okay, running it through, that it all makes sense, and that it kind of flows into something we can do, because there's a lot that we're taking on, and it's a big undertaking. It actually looks at, it's 2 phases, it's a 5-year and then a 10-year outlook. Also, not knowing, a lot of it being the unknown with future developments, that's a lot in there, and so there's kind of a 5-year and then a reassessment, reevaluation, and then we're going to kind of take it forward, but giving some options along the way.
So on the 5-year, is there more of a, an immediate need, like, is it?
There is, yes. I don't want to,
Yeah, I know,
I don't want to spoil the fun for
I get
you.
it.
I want you to be excited, when you get it, but yes, there is. It takes a critical look at what we need now, and all the feedback, and the valuable feedback from the 2 meetings that we had recently, as well as the survey and everything else, really kind of taking a look at what that is and trying to incorporate that into a 5-year facilities forecast.
Okay, and then I know we've done quite a bit of the critical needs as you've explained, and I know Rich has been a point for a lot of this, but can we have an update on what priorities we still need to address?
That's in there as well.
It's
Oh,
good
yeah,
in there.
it's, like I said, I think it's up to 23 pages now, so be ready to read.
Okay.
So it's a couple pictures.
Okay, so you've
pictures
done
break it
that.
up, but
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Good on that topic? Right, and then I think you had one more you had Riverview Edition.
I did want to know about what our funding options are. I'd like to know what those are in detail before we proceed, so like how those things affect, but if we can get some additional information from our municipal advisors on whether or not those can be repaid, what the interest rates are on those things, like how that works. We've never done COPS dollars here that I can remember. I don't think we've ever done them that in all the years that I've been here, so getting some further information on those would be helpful. And again, I'm just going to continue to reiterate my concern that we're not pausing until we get the facility plan from the superintendent,
So if the COPS grant is one option, are there possibly like 2 other options
There's
that you
different
could
funding
present?
options. It'd probably be best to have a municipal advisor come in to one of our board meetings, kind of explain all the different.
Okay, because I would like to hear what,
Yeah, he
other
can probably explain it a
options.
little bit better than I can.
Pros,
but
cons,
there's
everything.
different options out there. Basically, your 2 biggest ones are tax anticipation notes, which limits you to 10 years if you're doing it on your PI levy, and then the certificate of participation, the COPS, it's a type of borrowing. It's like a lease back type of borrowing. Like Will Beasley's done that a lot with some of their projects, and he can explain the details of that, and that allows us to go beyond a 10-year borrowing. Obviously, a larger purchase and a long-term asset.
I just want to make sure that we have those plans in place prior to breaking ground and prior to actually signing construction contracts. I want to know how we're paying for this, so that's all I have.
I think it's law, before we sign the contract, we have to dedicate the money.
Right, you have to have cash in hand when you sign the contract.
Yeah, we have to
so-
guarantee the funds, but that doesn't mean that doesn't leave other funds in a bad place that could put us in a very bad position. So I think that's what you're trying to look for, is like a bigger picture, a longer term.
And having that 5-year forecast for the PI fund is helpful
Yep.
as we go through that.
Okay. Anything else on that topic? All right. I had school bus undercoating, so I just wanted to make sure we were thinking about how, there's supposed to be a big benefit to the school bus undercoating, not saying there is or isn't. I just want to make sure we're trying to figure out how we measure that, and if there's any way we can make sure that, in my world, we use cost-benefit analysis to look at that. So I just want to make sure, how can we show, did we save anything with school, bus maintenance, that kind of thing, and moving forward? Any ideas offhand, or something we got to think about?
I mean, I think we gotta kind of see how this progresses and get some feedback from the transportation department to see what differences or, you know, improvements they've noticed.
I would agree. I think getting through the winter is a key as well, and then also looking at the winter that we have. Because we've had a couple mild winters, and they keep saying it's gonna be the bad one, so we'll see. But I do think it's a lot of that is going to be actually in the maintenance records, and we can compare maintenance records
From year to year?
from year to year.
Okay,
Potentially, that's a way to do it.
great. I just wanted to make sure we had a way to come back and look at it at some point.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. All right. And then I had CTE edition. I just wanted to get an update on what's going on. I've heard that we might have had some drawings, some discussion, so I just wanted to get an update from the district.
We've had multiple design meetings, and we've got, I think, TDA came up with a new design that was sent out today for review, and I think we have another design meeting next week that's on the books for just the CTE edition. It's exciting. They're exciting meetings to kind of picture what this space would look like. I think that we do have the question as to, as we get this design, I know buildings and ground estimates come back with, well, this is the base, but then this is what it would cost to add additional things onto it. Where we need to put the design based on the previous structures of the building, and some of the costs is really looking at specifically how much can we reach into the building, what can we do, can we get the benefit from some of that stuff. So I think that's part of what we're looking at, but coming up with a general consensus of a design is kind of one of the things we're working on now, as to kind of what's going on.
Do you think buildings and grounds will get to see some of that information in November? Or is that too early?
Probably depends on how our meeting goes next week.
Yes,
If we're-
Okay.
If we're done at that.
If we have a general design
We want
at
to
that
show
point, yeah.
people excited about something, if we end up changing the design, but when we get to a good point, we're comfortable, I think it's possible. And one of the things we also are thinking about is when we do this addition, you know, we're gonna have these wish list items we want to add into the project that we can maybe bid out as alternates. So then once we bid it out, we can pick and choose, okay, yeah, we want to pay the extra and do this, or no, we don't want to do that, and we see cost figures. So we're gonna explore those possibilities as well, as we go through this process.
So we have a set timeline on this. Are we on track or?
Yeah, I think we'll be on track. We're at the point now where we can get some preliminary cost estimates, just very rough to see where we're at, and then we can modify the plans to go from that.
And because of the proximity to certain parts of the building, mainly like the cafeteria there, and it's just one story, correct?
As of now, yes.
As of now.
Yeah, all of our drawings are one story.
Yeah, so, you know, looking at the Bylowski study, whatever can be pulled in, because that's what we're concerned about, is what additional costs there would be. Like, is it advantageous if this is going to be air conditioned? I'm just giving an example. Do you air condition the cafeteria because it's right there? I don't know.
I think we have said throughout, that's kind of the goal, is as we cut into the building to kind of reach through. I think we need to see some costs for that. I think that's a key to it. That would be ideal. We had talked about kind of uses of especially our cafeteria and the commons, that sort of area being a centralized place for multiple after-school, multiple community events. So to provide that in a climate-controlled atmosphere would be ideal. So we are investigating what that looks like. We are also looking at some of the Bylowski thing. One of the critical components or near critical deals, some of it deals with windows. So looking at what those windows are, and replacing not the entire campus's windows, which are 320, I think, is the number I had, or some astronomical number. But looking at even potentially around the immediate area, and even the doors. So if you're gonna put a brand new space next to the cafeteria, that those doors kind of match almost, so they look new and refreshed. So kind of having some of that along the way. And so we've had some of those conversations. Don't have pricing yet.
Okay.
And ultimately, it's gonna come down to what pricing is and what that looks like.
Right, but you put a figure in just in case.
We have a figure that we've thought about, that's pretty realistic, I think.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussions on the CTE? All right. I had some discussion on district funds. I think we've discussed them quite a bit tonight. There's one thing that I don't see in the projections, Mr. Placco, but I'm assuming it could be put into that fiscal year 2025 if anything moves forward.
Correct.
Okay. That brings us to new business. So, Mrs. Grassi, I know you had funds again. Is that anything else you want to cover there?
We do not have to cover
Okay.
that again.
All right.
We've done that.
You had high school addition project, CTE, I think we covered that too.
We covered all of
We
it.
covered
I'm good with Brian.
The last one I had for new business is, I would like to recommend that we start recording committee meetings. They are public meetings, and we can record them, and I would love to have them recorded so the public or myself can go back and review them. Any discussion on that?
I have no objection to
I
that.
think it's a good idea. Again, more information for everyone in the district is better. I think that would be good.
All right, we have you some more recording gigs, I think.
You good?
They are early in the morning.
Nick's ready to go.
Yeah, that's
Some
not
people
our
are morning
best space
people,
at
that's for
7
sure.
o'clock.
Oh, no, bedhead. Please
I
get
would
ready.
recommend we put on the website a separate section for
That's fine.
for videos for other committee meetings. I think that's good. Separate them out from the general meetings perhaps.
I'm sure Mr. Carabine can probably come up with some good ideas on how to organize it.
So pajamas are not acceptable anymore.
That's a shame.
Okay.
You guys might have to sit closer together at those meetings, though. Yeah?
I would prefer to be off camera.
All right.
I have a face for radio.
So that brings us, so we just hit old and new business. That brings us to Board of Education Committee and Liaison Reports. We did have a superintendent business advisory meeting. Unfortunately, it was rescheduled due to the water main break. And due to that reschedule, our attendance went down a little bit, but we did have some really good discussion on how we want to, or how the district would like to start thinking about the portrait of a Riverside beaver and how we want to start using it and some different opportunities to work with all grades. So there'll be more to come on that after next month, which I think is November 7th? Nope.
Yeah.
Am I right? Okay.
Yeah,
November 7th is our next Business Advisory Council meeting. We hope to have a full group so that we can have a little bit more discussion and start some planning. Did I cover it all, Dr. Tino?
You did.
All right. That brings us to the Curriculum and Programming Committee and Facilities Liaison. Ms. Brewster?
Okay. All right. The Curriculum Programs Committee met on October 16th, and following the presentation of our district state test results, which we covered at the board meeting, we had some further discussion about the staff actively working on current MAP testing that identifies specific skills where students need additional help. So that's in process, ongoing. And then America 250 materials were given to the district, and they pretty much target 4th, 8th, and 10th grade. So over the next year, our district will engage in some activities to celebrate America's 250th birthday. Currently, Riverside is celebrating its 75th anniversary. That is not the first graduating class, I was told by Dr. Rottino. The first graduating class was
52.
52. Okay. So Student Council and the Alumni Association will host a celebration in March, is my understanding, and we're just to stay tuned for details. Grades 3 through 5 are engaged in reading pilots, just testing some materials. One of them is Benchmark Advantage, and the other is Wit and Wisdom. Wit and Wisdom is the program that we adopted for K2. So they're looking at that for 3-5, but also at Benchmark Advantage. A panel discussion will take place on, is that on Professional Development Day? Okay, to provide additional insights. So since the staff has been working with these materials, they want to report out how it's going, what's working, what isn't, what they'd like to see continue, and what they might want changed. And so one of the things is they would like to include more student choice in the books that they're reading, because kids, improve in reading if they're reading something they want to read, and so that they get to select those books. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, trying to provide. Currently, grades 6 through 8 does not have a specific reading program, and there will be more discussions at those grade levels, whether we want to continue that, so that you know, if there's a program, it just kind of flows through. But that's future decision-making. The annual professional development days for staff will be held on November 4th and 5th. There will be no school for students on those days. Some of the same themes will be continued, and those include MTSS, which is the multi-tiered system of supports, which targets interventions to assist student learning. One on behavior, tier 1, that's at the classroom level, just providing initial classroom supports for teachers and staff. Also, there'll be a presentation on AI, artificial intelligence, and tools that are available for the staff. And then personalized learning will continue. We have several efforts across the continuum of personalized learning going on in the district. And so they're going to be delving into assessment, learner profiles, and creating student choice friendly options. And then Dr. Malakar will create a staff schedule for this 2-day professional development. And I know Mrs. Lanning and Dr. Malakar also introduced the idea of a kindergarten camp prior to the beginning of school in the fall. So that's in the works, and a committee is being formed to work out those details. But it would allow the children who will be coming to kindergarten to, you know, meet at school, to get to know them, for teachers to observe, and to possibly also do some of the screening activities at that time, and have a better idea of, you know, getting to know the kids before they're placed in classes. So our next meeting will be held on November 14th at 7:30 a.m. Okay. And then as far as facilities liaison, we have the 2 meetings at Buckeye and Melridge, and you'll be reporting out on that. So nothing else to report there.
Okay, that brings us to Buildings and Grounds Operations Committee, Alumni Association. Mr. Fischel?
The big news for the Alumni Association is that this Saturday is the Hall of Fame dinner. And I understand the attendance is going from about 60 to 120. Last year about 60, this year about 120. So that's great news. Buildings and Grounds, the heating, all the boilers were put online and ready for the heating season. Duct cleaning. So the duct work for the trailers, the modular classrooms, 2 at Melridge, 4 at Buckeye, were cleaned and sanitized. And there was 1 broken window at Buckeye, got fixed. Maintenance, Mr. Arlesic is using his crew to save the district about $60,000, $65,000. There was a quote to remove all the ceiling lights in the auditorium and retrofit to LED. And Mr. Arlesic says our staff can do the whole job for about $5,000. Mr. Arlesic, thank you very much. We have a boiler problem at Parkside. There is a hole in a heat exchanger. 2 years ago, to buy a new heat exchanger, $21,000. Today, $72,000. So little increase. And is there any update on Gardner trying to find an alternative?
We actually have a plan. One of my maintenance guys and myself are going to work with a Gardner tech. We are going to pull out the heat exchanger. We are going to pressurize it with air, and we are going to put a bubble soap on it and see if we can find the crack. We're hoping that if we can find the crack, we can go ahead and braze it and go ahead and not have to spend $70,000. So that is the first step. If not, we are going to document what we found with pictures and hopefully some video, and we will send it to Robinson Mechanical, who, I think it's mechanical, I'm not positive on that. They were the distributor for the boilers for the project when the schools were built. We're hoping that with the information, they can go ahead and reach out to RBI itself and get us a heat exchanger if we need to purchase one at a lesser rate. And we are scheduled, I believe, next week for that heat exchanger to come out.
Thank you for the update. The football field, the turf. Mr. Arlesic and crew went out, did a biannual cleaning, repair, and sanitizing, and found that things were generally okay with the expectation of about 2 to 4 more years of life, and we're going to have to replace the turf. That was in our financial report from Mr. Platko, the $800,000 number. Floor scrubbers. Our floor scrubbers are becoming non-useful is the best way to put it. And instead of using manual hands to scrub the floors, 2 new floor scrubbers will be purchased. And do we have 6 in total in the district?
7.
7. So the idea is replace them 2 at a time to spread the cost out. So we'll be doing that. And there was some discussion about remodeling bathrooms at Lamuth on the 1st and 2nd floors. The approximate number would be about $400,000, so that is in further discussion and consideration. Hallmark Excavating was out to repair an underground washout. A hole was found underneath the visitor stands at the stadium. The repair is complete. We don't have to worry about a sinkhole, as Mr. Arlesic has said, so we should be okay there. Stalls Plus. The bathrooms at Riverside and John R. are going to be done basically over spring break. Would that be accurate?
Correct.
Okay. And that is for 6 more bathrooms. The feedback on the other bathrooms was really good, and so we're going to do 6 more. We discussed plumbing fixtures with manual flushers, but I think right now that's on hold.
Correct.
Okay? But just as a technical item, everyone has seen the automatics. Well, they're a little bit more difficult to repair, a little bit more expensive to replace and repair. And so we're thinking about manuals, which are much easier to work on and don't cost as much. And so we don't think there's much benefit doing the automatics, but that's in further discussion. The discussion for the RFQ for the architect was had. TDA was the only architectural firm that had applied, so that is on the agenda tonight to approve TDA as the architect for the Riverview addition. The areas of water that are in front of Riverview and Parkside, we are going to put fencing up. So we had gotten pricing, and I believe that's on the agenda tonight for approval. So the big concern there is you get water in there, especially over at Riverview. You can get 4 feet of water when there's a lot of rain. People have seen kids driving their bikes down into there. We don't even want to think what could happen, so we're fencing it so kids can't go in there and get hurt. And that's the update for buildings and grounds.
Yeah,
Did you
what
think of
type
anything
of
else?
fencing?
Ms. Grassi? I'm
What
sorry?
type of fencing?
It's going to be a black vinyl chain link type fence, I believe, is
4 foot tall.
4 foot tall.
Yeah, I just had one question. I think it was at the September Buildings and Grounds meeting, we had discussed putting a concrete pad under the storage shed. We talked about that at Buildings and Grounds and had thought that that would be a good idea to move forward with that, and I haven't seen it on the agenda yet. Do we have any update on that?
We are investigating drainage and kind of doing some things with that before we move ahead with the concrete pad, but the way the parking lot is sloped, I don't know if actually adjusting drainage is possible on that shed, so it's something we're still looking into. We'll have a report out shortly.
That's all I have.
That's one over here.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, that brings us to Policy Committee and Legislative Liaison, Mrs. Grassi.
I have nothing. You all love me now. I have nothing.
After the election.
Central Point Island effect today.
In November, there's
When will you ever hear that out of my mouth again? I
in
have
November, there's a
nothing.
hold with the 5-year forecast.
Yes, so
Okay.
like, great. And I don't think that we'll have a legislative update probably till January, because they really won't be back in session, so there's really not much going on, and so I have nothing.
All right, that brings us to the superintendent's report.
All right, I unfortunately do have some stuff. So, but it's all good and it's all great stuff. First of all, as mentioned earlier, we did have 2 community visioning sessions to talk about facilities. We went on the road, so we were at Buckeye on the 14th and Melridge on the 22nd. Really looked at the participants who came gave up kind of an hour to do a SWOT analysis. So SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we started with the vision of what does a perfect Riverside look like, and then we took a look at how does that perfect Riverside reflected in our legacy buildings, and then other themes that came up in that visioning session. Did that SWOT analysis, and now I'm taking a look at not only the responses and kind of grouping the responses, as well as feedback provided through an online feedback form, and I will send that out to all participants as soon as it is finally compiled, and it is making its way and a significant part of it into the upcoming facilities plan. So I thought it was a really great session, a really great chance to give everyone a voice, as they move through, and then really kind of a chance for them to then vote on and prioritize those voices. When you only have 3 votes, it makes it really kind of strong when you're giving your sticker up to those things to really kind of move forward. So I thought it was a great night, really good session, and a lot of positive feedback from that. So those were great visioning meetings, and really great opportunities. Next up is Boo Fest. Boo Fest was this Saturday. It was awesome. National Honor Society. Boo Fest is one of those things that makes this community special. For those who don't know, our National Honor Society converts the campus hallway into there's a haunted house that's put into the media center, but into just a Halloween-themed spectacle or carnival. They have games. They have candy as you walk down the hallway, so trick or treat for our young families. They're in costumes. There's Halloween-themed movies that are on. And then, like I said, there are 2 different haunted houses. There's an actual haunted house where a lot of our theater students, but other just students kind of turn the library or the media center into kind of a haunted spectacle as you went through. As we went through, they made my wife scream. It was awesome. So I loved it. And then there's one for junior or younger students that really looks into kind of more of a games and carnival type atmosphere in the John R. cafeteria. So great job at National Honor Society. Got a lot of great feedback from them. And the admission goes to a charity that NHS raises. So they raised $1,600 for a charity. I don't think they've named it yet, but kind of one of those going forward. So. As Mr. Fischel mentioned, this Saturday is Hall of Fame ceremony. I think the attendance doubled because they knew I was speaking again. So I'd like to actually it's a great class. I want to congratulate the class ahead of time. Laura Sanders Sterling, class of 1980, Anna Day, class of 2006, Allie Tobias, class of 2007. She's going to the Athletic Hall of Fame. Coach McHenrick is an athletic coach going in to the Hall of Fame, and then Anthony Montanini, who I'm getting to the point where I recognize a lot of these names. I've met these people personally before going in, so it's phenomenal and really great people and willing of enshrinement. So congratulations to them.
So one minor note: you were not included in on the email, but there was an email disseminated out. They do have the hook ready for you.
Do they? I'm short. I promise. I'm short and sweet, but it is an honor to kind of welcome everyone to that, and it's one thing that I do enjoy. Today, actually, our special education report rating was released from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. They release this every year, evaluating the special education department and their programs. This is based on the prior year. We received the highest possible rating of meets requirements. I mean, it's really...
Hey, I'll take it.
We'll take it. And the highest, it's out of a score of 4, and we got a 4.0. So you can't get any better than that. So congratulations. And thank you to all staff who contributed to this the highest rating possible. And it is an area of pride, even though we just meet requirements. But one of those things we're real happy about. It is the fall season. We are wrapping up the fall sports season, and just want to put a quick shout out to our fall sports teams still in the postseason. This Saturday, our volleyball team plays Brecksville Broadview Heights for the district championship. Our boys soccer team plays Hudson for the district championship. I believe that one's in Elyria. And then our girls cross country team is competing at the regional competition. Our football team has one more game Friday night against Chardon, and they are guaranteed a playoff spot in week 1 of the playoffs, but we don't know where it is yet. So that will be determined after we meet Chardon Friday night.
Is that Chardon or is that home?
That's a home game. So we are excited to see that. Just a reminder that Riverside is on the ballot issue 4. We're on the ballot November 5th. This is the joint financing school district levy. I am just providing facts, as that's all I'm allowed to provide about this levy, so I cannot advocate for it. I have to say that as a disclaimer. The financing district is made up of Madison, Painesville City, Perry, and Riverside school districts. The levy originally passed in 1990 and has been approved every 5 years since. These funds go into the general fund and are used for necessary personnel, materials, supplies, and transportation for instruction in language arts, social studies, math, fine and practical arts, health and physical education, science and business education. And please visit our website for all of the factual information. And I do believe it generates
3.2 million a year.
of our general fund. So it is a significant amount. That's all I can say about that. Veterans Day is November 11th, and this is our call. We welcome all veterans living in the Riverside Local School District to attend Riverside High School's annual Veterans Day ceremony and luncheon on November 11th, which is Veterans Day at 11 a.m. Another one of the great things we do is an outreach to the community, so please let us know if you want to attend, and we will make sure we arrange for your attendance.
Do we have an agenda for that?
I do not have an agenda. Mrs. Cabell puts that together, so we can get that. And we can post that to the website as well.
Could you share that with
I
us?
will-
That would be
Yes, we will
awesome.
put that in our Friday packet, which will be next Friday.
Technically, all of our schools have something
Yeah, all
going
of our
on that
schools do
day.
have
Like
Veterans
middle school and elementaries normally do a breakfast. Those are more like relatives of the kids. Campus, you tend to get just veterans who
Yeah.
may not have relatives. They just come here.
So for next week's Friday packet, we'll kind of try to get a summary of what each school is doing.
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
invite my brother-in-law. who's
Absolutely.
a veteran.
As previously mentioned, Thursday, November 21st is Senior Citizen Night. Dinner starts at 4. It is a free dinner for all seniors. You do need to register ahead of time, and a free screening of the fall play, Death by Chocolate. I'm told it is hysterical. It's a pretty funny play. I'm really excited about it. So you can come for dinner, stay for the play, and then stick around for the board meeting that follows. So it's going to be a great night that night on Thursday. As I said, it is Death by Chocolate. If you can't make the Thursday show at 5, there are 2 other available opportunities to catch it, Friday and Saturday, both starting at 7:30 p.m., and tickets can be purchased on the website. For that, and another great thing, we do save the date for Halls of Holly, which is December 7th from 12 to 3. This is where we do a winter holiday themed event hosted by our side leadership program. They put that on. I do think there's going to be a guest Santa. I'm not sure who it is. I'm still trying to talk Mr. Placco into it, but he hasn't been yet. But we are working into Santa being there as well. And that concludes my report, and thank you, Dr. Malaki.
All right, that brings us to the treasurer's report and committee update. So Finance, Audit, and Personnel Committee and Booster Organization Liaison, Mr. Keeney.
Okay. We had our meeting was held on October 16th. Personnel updates, the typical personal turnover and postings for new or replacement positions is always ongoing. 2 new positions of registered behavioral technicians is being considered. These will be in-house hires of aides wishing for advancement opportunities and will require a 40-hour training class to become certified. They will aid the faculty when behavior issues arise in the classroom and will avoid having to hire outside services. Also, musical instrument replacement, some of this was mentioned earlier. The musical instrument replacements were last done in 2013. The larger instruments, especially in the marching band, are susceptible to damage over time and require refurbishment or replacement. The cost to replace all instruments will be in the $300,000 range, and plans are being formed for the best way to move forward. Healthcare. Riverside is part of an 11-district consortium that self-insures for healthcare. This is a complex arrangement that, depending on annual claims, can vary greatly the cost to the district. And these costs are unknown from year to year and difficult to forecast. Discussions are underway to decide what type of arrangement would be in the best interest of the Riverside district. Also, the Advanced Energy Grant Fund by the Ohio Department of Development was again mentioned earlier. This would require a study, an energy assessment done on our part that would come with a cost in the neighborhood around $10,000, maybe a little more or less, that would have to be submitted with the grant. And if you don't get the grant in 1 year, that assessment would be good for another year. So that is under consideration, just what is going to move forward with that. So our next meeting will be on November 14th at 8:30 a.m.
Anything from the booster organizations?
There was no meetings this month.
All right, that brings us to an update from the treasurer.
All right, as always, we'll go through our monthly financial reports. We're looking at September of 2024. As always, our financial reports available in board docs and on the treasurer's page. It will link up there on the slides. The total cash balance for all of our funds is $44.4 million. Of that, $29.5 million is the balance in the general fund. Our permanent improvement fund, which we kind of reviewed more accurate numbers earlier, or more up-to-date numbers, but we have $7.8 million at the time at the end of September, of which 1.3 was encumbered for projects already and 6.5 available. Appropriations and revenue estimates, we're currently 25% through 2025. Our revenue is currently at 37.6% of those estimates. It's higher than that, higher than 25, because we get a large sum in property tax revenue, and then revenue trickles down to the next one. And our expenditures are trending a little bit below at 23.7%, which is typical for the beginning of the fiscal year. On the next slide, our revenue for September is just shy of 1.5 million. Remember, last month was much higher due to the tax settlement. Includes $626,000 for unrestricted state foundation payments and $372,000 from the Medicaid school program revenue. That's from our 2022 cost settlement. They're usually typically 2 years or so behind on that settlement. So we received that this month. Interest revenue for September was $153,000 in the general fund. Our Star Ohio interest rate at the end of September was 5.08%. Our Red Tree investment account is at 3.8% for an overall yield of 4.59%. And looking at expenditures for September was about $4.6 million. So that pretty much concludes what I have for the financial update, and I have no other updates.
Saving time for next month.
Next month will be longer with the budget.
All right, that brings us to public comment. Anyone wishing to address the Board of Education will be recognized by the board's president. Speakers are requested to speak from the podium, identify themselves and their topic, and comments are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you. Yes.
Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
I'm Bill Robertson. I'm a resident of the district. I'm 74 years old and retired. What I have been doing is coming to the meetings and trying to share some knowledge, so I have been working with hearing what's saying, and then I send everything as an email so they can have time to review it. Just as a quick reminder, this is a public meeting that the Sunshine Laws give us the privilege of attending. It doesn't give us the privilege of having public conversation while the board's in session. We should need to sit in our seats and behave ourselves. Last month's meeting was a disappointment. So most of you here are young enough to be my children. So just appreciate that. The only other gentleman I see that's my contemporary is in the back. They're trying to do the best job they can. There are elected officials and appointed, so this is our board by law. If we don't like it, then when the next election comes up, you make the appropriate changes. But you don't do the personal attacks as you've been doing in the past. That's not the deal. So listen, share your comments, behave, and move forward. What you do need to know with your bad behavior is that I'm pretty active in the retirees community. I can afford to pay my taxes, so taxes are not an issue for me. But it's a huge issue for the other retirees. And you'll see how big an issue it is on the 7th of November, after the election results come in. They're scared to death about the property tax increases. They don't know what it's going to be. 30%, they hear 30%. It's not going to be 30%, as we know, but they hear 30%. So when you're coming back to them for money, just know there's going to be a little bit of resistance. So when they see a lot of dissension, It makes them really question about what's going on. So that doesn't help anything. If you have dissension, and the board actually behaved absolutely correctly tonight. There was disagreement, but they just stated their disagreement, nothing personal. So nothing personal. Any of those that have been in sports, you can criticize a referee.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure the comments are directed to the board.
Oh, no.
It's supposed to be, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if you've ever been involved in sports, you can criticize a referee's call. If you make this mistake at the end of calling him a jerk, you're out of the game. So you can criticize the calls as they've done, and that's completely appropriate. We can do that as well. You can criticize the calls, but you don't make it personal. It's just that simple. If you're not happy with the board, make your voice heard at the next election.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hi, Joe Adino, parent of 3 students from Riverside. My takeaway from last month's school board meeting is that, unfortunately, I think the art of storytelling and being articulate might be both a lost art. We're going to pretend that I'm a school board member and that this meeting is last month's meeting. And had the following approach been taken, the emotion and frustration felt by parents in this room would likely have been avoided. Parents, this is going to require some participation from you. I just need you to say the word second when prompted. Here we go. Parents, faculty, and fellow board members, our number one security and facility concern is that of the trailers at Buckeye Elementary School. That school is in desperate need of both a large addition and major renovation. Students and teachers should not be subjugated to the current state of security and infrastructure that is Buckeye Elementary. I am proposing that we have a work session as a board and administration where we can collaborate and discuss a way forward that addresses this concern and that of the overcrowding of some of our other schools. My suggestion is this. For us to add on to Buckeye and have the space needed in the back of the building to start an addition, we need to first relocate X amount of classrooms. Obviously, we cannot do that within Buckeye as the building's at max capacity. I think our best way forward to address the needs of Buckeye Elementary and to add on to Riverview so that we could temporarily house the X amount of classrooms from Buckeye. Once relocated, we can then start the addition and renovation of Buckeye. Once Buckeye is complete, we could then bring those classes back to Buckeye, leaving Riverview with the additional space. I motion to have this work session as soon as possible. Do I hear a second? Second. Now, had this approach been taken and followed before last month's meeting, there may not have been the online frenzy and the in-person frenzy that took place. This is what happens when things are done out of order. Out of order is a sign you put on things that are not working, like a broken vending machine or escalator or bathroom stall. My last point is this. We cannot continue to have this infighting, a constant 3 against 2 or 2 against 3. The clock is ticking in our students' education. There are only 2,340 days of grade school. We need one path forward, one vision forward, without drama, without chaos, and without doing things and saying things out of order. As a reminder, your most important constituents are those in 3rd grade, 7th grade, 10th grade, or even the children who have yet to reach grade school. Let's hit the restart button today and start gaining the trust of the parents, teachers, and students of this district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment?
Hi there, my name is Crystal Archer. I have a 5th grader at Riverview. He was a member of the first class there in 2019. I also have an 8th grader who should be at John R. but is not. We have taken him out because his needs weren't being met special education wise, so he's elsewhere for now. I'm hoping that we'll be able to bring him back, and that was the main reason why we started coming to these meetings, looking into everything more. But then in the past month or so, like, holy moly, things are just not going well. And as Mr. Adino said, it just seems things seem out of order. It's chaos. And as Mr. Robertson said, people did act out too much last time. People are just very upset when it comes to people's children, their future. They get very upset. And not everyone is used to board procedure and how things work. Like, they don't know that you can't speak back and forth and things like that. So I just don't understand why some of the things are happening, how they are. I don't understand the big, huge push for Riverview. It's not some new thing that rooms are being used for what they were not intended for. There just has to be something, and there's just like a level of distrust amongst the community and the board now. And I would feel that I don't think levies and things like that would pass in the near future until you regain that trust. It's severely broken. And I'm not just one of a couple little ladies sitting around. It is people from every school, like Riverview, Buckeye, Melridge, Lamouth, Parkside, everyone, the campus, everyone feels it. And we're not even just all pals. Most of us never knew each other before, but we've all come together. We're trying to start a positive, nonpartisan group to try to help get our feelings across and try to hope that our school board in the future will be listening to what the community wants and acting on the best interest of the children and the futures of the children. Like, some of us will have kids that will be here for the next 20 years. We need to make sure that everything is fiscally going in the right direction and doing what makes sense. You may notice some people with some buttons. I was asked, well, what are you campaigning for? I said, we're not campaigning. It's just a show of unity. It's a group of people that, just like-minded people from both sides of the aisle. We have liberals, we have independents, we have, surprisingly, I am a conservative Christian voter myself. And I think, what the heck? I don't know what's going on. And moving forward, we're going to try to make sure we have people and candidates that listen to the needs and the wants of the community and see what all we can do. So just try to decide why you're here and do what's best for the children. And I think most of you have that in mind, and I hope you just make good decisions. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Mike Gerson. I live in Grand River, one kid at Lamouth. I'm glad you talked about sunshine laws. Did you know that a public body can only enter into an executive session to discuss property purchases for specific reasons outlined by the Ohio Revised Code? Confidentiality and the status of it, those are not specific reasons. You have a friend who owns the property you want to buy, that's not a reason. You don't get to use that as a reason. I didn't get to be here for the executive session in the room, but I didn't need to be because I'm not dumb, unlike what Mr. Fischel thinks we are all dumb, right? We've got a map here. This is the casement development that's been proposed, right? This was submitted to the Painesville Township Board of Trustees back in January, February, March, and all through the year of 2023. We take a look at the map. I'll show you one of aerial GIS images. Here's Riverview Elementary. This is the property that we own. Here's the casement development. You might notice that there's a property line missing, right? The friends that Mr. Fischel has, the developers of the casement property, had this drawn up, and conspicuously this line disappeared. It's crazy. And then we fast forward to this year, and Mr. Fischel and his cronies here forced through an addition on Riverview. And he's got plans for parking to address those concerns, the traffic concerns, right? And then we have an executive session, illegally, by the way, to discuss the property purchase. We don't know about it. It's going to be our money that pays for it, right? It's the property that his friend owns, Jenny Sidley. His longtime friend that owns this property. He wants to buy that from her so that he can add on a driveway and some parking areas and whatever else he wants. Why? What was the purpose? We didn't need an addition here. We needed an addition and improvements at the schools where you laid out perfectly in that email for anybody who wanted to see it. Our children are in danger at Buckeye. That's why I took my 2 non-verbal autistic children out of Riverside District, because that school is a frickin' danger. They could disappear, they could be kidnapped, somebody could jump that fence and shoot them. There's no safety there. But you want to add on to your pride and joy school here, Riverview, brand new school. It's crazy, the deception that you're purporting, that you would go along with him when he put your grandchildren in danger with that email. It's disgusting.
Chris Weiss from Leroy. Might be of interest to everyone assembled here that Mr. Robertson on the 31st of January donated $1,500 to the Joshua Super PAC, as shown on this campaign finance report. Since last meeting, many people have reached out to me. A lot of ideas, what can we do? Let's have a recall election. Let's, censure Mr. Fischel, do all these kind of things. Unfortunately, there's no vehicle in Ohio law to do that. That doesn't mean that we don't have any recourse. Last June, I filed a complaint, 2 complaints in fact, one with the Federal Election Commission and the other one with the Ohio Election Commission. The Joshua Super PAC and the officials, including Scott, Kathy, and their son Connor, have violated numerous federal and state laws, such as Article 52 of the U.S. Code, Ohio Revised Code, Section 3517.2, and my complaint alleges that they colluded with numerous campaigns to include the campaign of Bernie Moreno, Denise Brewster, Beverly Shalero, Denise Verdi, and others, and made illegal campaign contributions and in fact colluded with these campaigns. Now, this complaint is currently under investigation, but for those of you who wish to add to it, I am going to post the template for this complaint so that anyone wishing to read it, notarize their signature, and send it to the FEC or the Ohio Election Commission may do so. The more people that file these complaints, the more they have to take notice and take action on the matter. There's also an Ohio law under various parts of the Ohio Revised Code to include but not limited to Section 2961.02 of the ORC that any person convicted of a felony offense cannot hold public office or volunteer. Many of these crimes brought out in my complaint are felonies, so I would suggest anyone interested to reach out to me. I'll be posting my template for the complaint online, and you can feel free to use it at your discretion. All of the source materials are noted. We have a pretty good amount of evidence. Mr. Fischel chose to stand in front of the field house on election day with his Jaguar parked with Denise Brewster's campaign sign on it, which is a violation. He also was distributing Joshua PAC information along with the campaign information from Denise Brewster and Bev Shalero, which is another campaign violation, and it just goes on and on and on. So filing those complaints do have some teeth. The last thing is you can file a complaint with the Ohio Ethics Commission, who can make a finding of a misdemeanor.
Everyone has a right to face their accuser. Just also know that I
sorry,
donated
I'm sorry,
$2,500 to the
Mr.
Riverside
Robertson.
Schools
Mr. Robertson,
for their
you
theater
have-
program.
Public comment is done. Any other public comment?
Kathy Fischel, who is the one that has Joshua Super PAC. And Mr. Weiss knows very clearly that Mr. Fischel's not a part of it. He's not on any of the paperwork. Do you know? Yeah. Okay. So he's not on it. He is allowed to do whatever he wants. I stayed clear of all the campaigns that the Joshua Super PAC supported. He can stand on, he can pass out anything he wants. What he filed against the FEC is fraudulent because Mr. Weiss wanted so desperately to be on this board. And I know what a big bully he is. He bullied me. He's bullied women. He does not like women. He has bullied so many people. He's got a criminal list this long, and I did everything in my power to make sure he wasn't sitting there. And then he said he drank a glass of scotch the night that he defeated Beverly Shalero. Well, I don't drink scotch. But I was the one that was very happy and very proud that he did not get on this board. He hates Lori Korninsky. He used to talk about her in a terrible way. She's ruined the Cub Scouts. Belinda Grassi, he badmouthed her. He was going to come to a meeting one night And I'm like, what he was gonna do, I'm like, you can't do that. It was a despicable thing. He's a despicable man. And he lies. Go ahead and add on. Go ahead and do what you ever want. He's lying, and he's been lying since day one. And I don't like calling people a liar, but I'm gonna tell you, you people came here at that last meeting on a lie. I sit in these meetings. I go back and I watch them. Miss Grassi misinformed all of you, and I'm surprised. But I've heard also from other people she causes a lot of trouble wherever she goes, so, you know, there you go. I don't like to do that personally, but you have a problem with lying. I mean, this board very well discussed the immediate need for Riverview, but you didn't tell anybody that, and our superintendent failed to do that too. Because a lot of people went to those few meetings in the summertime and they said he didn't want to hear anything we had to say. We did not hear that Riverview was overcrowded. So I think that you all have your facts just a little, all screwed up. Also, responsive classroom was brought up last month. And it was said, Mr. Weiss with his big CRT shirt, no CRT as he's running for school board, his sign said no CRT, and then he goes, oh, it was a lie. Well, it's not a lie. Responsive classroom, April 28th of 2023. When Mr. Hack and Mr. Fisher were trying to tell people where it came from, our own curriculum director said, this is SEL. And SEL is at the top of the chart, CRT, comprehensive sex education, gender identity, that's all encompassed. It's
Okay,
all encompassed.
Please, public.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
The long walk to the podium here. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Hi, my name is Jeff Jordan. I have 3 children in the district. There are 2 that are at Lamouth and 1 at Melridge. So first I'd like to give a big shout out to Mr. Fischel, Ms. Brewster, Mr. Keeney. Your actions at the last board meeting have taken this busy medical professional, dad, coach, who was half paying attention to the school board meetings, and now you've converted me into someone who's now paying attention and engaged, ready to fight for what's right. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. As I reflected on the last board meeting from the last month, one word kind of continued to come to me, and that word was trust. In order for a school board to function and serve the students and the voters in an effective way, there must be a level of trust that exists between this board and the community you serve. So the actions taken by 3 out of 5 board members at the last meeting have unfortunately broken that trust in a significant way. You completely disregarded the community feedback that was asked for by the administration and by you, not to mention that you disrespected those who gave their time and their talent to contribute to the facilities planning meetings that are apparently ongoing. I would respectfully ask that you 3 members of the board who pushed this agenda through find a way to begin reestablishing trust with parents and other community members. Another word that kept coming into my mind was ulterior motives. Ulterior motives. Through the research that I've done, just started to do, I listened to a lot of Mr. Fischel's public podcasts that are available on a website. And he's appeared along with his wife that's back here. And I've noticed a theme. The theme is using school boards as a vehicle to promote your own political agenda. While I have no issue with anyone's political beliefs, we live in a free country, we have diversity of strongly held beliefs. That's great. What I do have an issue with and a problem with is when those interests take precedent over our children and their interests. That is, by definition, sir, an ulterior motive. And lastly, I'm pleased to let you know that after last board meeting, a group of like-minded people, 500 plus, have convened. That's not including our spouses, most of us, by the way, with the sole goal of looking toward the 2025 elections and unseating those that have seats that are coming up. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kyle Abram. I have two kids in the district. Once again, like my peer here said, thank you guys, Mr. Fischel, Ms. Brewster, Mr. Keeney. I was very surface level, paid attention to the decisions and the actions of the school board and how they served the kids, the taxpayers, and the voters. I have the actions and decisions of the board the last couple months have changed that. So thank you guys. What you guys have managed to create a grassroots movement. It's at the level of local politics, grassroots movements are pretty effective. So I'm excited to be a part. And Ms. Brewster, I'm ashamed to say that I voted for you because I thought that your experience as an administrator, your ties to the Riverside Local School District would make you an asset for the kids, the taxpayers, and the community. Now when people say who I voted for, I say I voted for you out of ignorance. The good thing is I don't have to be ignorant anymore, is that me and the fellow voters in the community, like they said, there's a grassroots movement starting to make sure that voters and the taxpayers are no longer ignorant. I will have no problem going door to door using social media, doing whatever means necessary to explain to my neighbors and like-minded voters that we have 3 board members that are acting fiscally irresponsibly with their hard-earned taxpayer dollars. And at the local level, that will go a long way. Like Mr. Robertson said, that they're worried about their property taxes and how they're being spent. I don't think that they would like hearing that their tax dollars are being spent irresponsibly, and that kind of appears what you guys are doing. So like I said, thank you. We'll be here. I don't think we're going to go anywhere. I would like you guys to take the opportunity now to turn it around. Like you said, regain that trust. That's all I got.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Jessica Nagy, I have 2 kids in the district, one at the campus and one now at Lamouth. I wasn't going to speak, but I've been involved here for years. I have been involved with boards for a long time. I actually have a relative on a school board. I have not divulged that information. So I know the rules, I know the laws very, very well. I know that you cannot speak on behalf of the board as one board member. So Mr. Fischel, you cannot do this, and creating this new policy is pretty much against the law. So what you're trying to do is a dictatorship, and that's not appropriate. Yeah, I know you can't even look at me, which is not even cool. I'm speaking to you, sir. Can you acknowledge my presence? Because you haven't in all these 3 years almost.
I'm writing your notes down.
I know, but a little bit of acknowledgement would be nice, a little bit of respect, since I'm trying to address you. But you cannot speak on behalf of the entire board. That's inappropriate, that's wrong, that just cannot happen. So, you doing this is inappropriate. So I'm begging you to stop pushing this. As somebody that's been coming to these meetings since predating you, you've been pushing all of this since the beginning, and it's pretty disgusting. And per what your wife said, you are on podcasts saying you are the super PAC. So I dispute that. It's a lie. You said that you have your super PAC. You boast about it. So I've got all the copies. And I also was here, and I have it on video. I approached the board the December before you got voted in, or right after you got voted in, and I told the board that you met with Women of Liberty, for Liberty beforehand. So this has been a long-standing thing for you of what you're trying to push. You met with the Women for Liberty. You've been on this journey for a long time trying to take over our schools, and it's not okay. And I'm just really glad that people are listening, that people are trying to now see it. And unfortunately, it's taking their money to band us together, which is fine. But you know, all I can also say to you is that since, you know, your wife wanted to bring in some extra things here, for those of us that have children in this district that also know, I just have 2 words to say to you, and that's glass house, sir. You really need to take care of your own. You know, since you wanted to put into your commercials, your granddaughters, yeah, I think you have your own personal things that you need to take care of, because when we want to take care of our own children and tell us how we should be taking care of our children and what we should not or should be doing and what's best, when you have your own little shenanigans going on, sir, I really don't think you're the best person to be sitting there telling us what we should be doing when your granddaughters are doing what they're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, getting our way wasn't really good, right?
Any other public comment? All right. That brings us to consent agendas. First up is finance and audit.
We have items A through H on the consent agenda. So may I have a motion to approve the items listed on the finance consent agenda as recommended by the treasurer?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to, as usual, thank those who have donated to the district. We have some MetaQuest headsets, Elite straps, and Elite straps with battery packs. I have no idea what those are.
Yeah, virtual reality systems.
Oh,
Okay, thank you. And charging stations, and those were donated by Steris Corporation. Thank you for clarifying. And $4,000 from the class of 1964 to the class of 1964 scholarship fund, which I'm sure will be appreciated by the seniors in this district as they go forward. So thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, please call the roll.
Lori Krenisky,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney.
Aye.
Motion carried. That brings us to consent agenda for personnel.
Again, we have items A through I. So may I have a motion to approve items A through I listed on the personal consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I would just like to thank those individuals who are retiring. We have got some really long-term individuals, Carol Campbell, Rady, Kieran Palmer, and Georgian McNeil, who have been with this district for a really long time, so good luck on their retirement.
It's really hard to replace those three.
Absolutely.
No further discussion. Please take the roll.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney,
Aye.
Lori Krenisky.
Aye. Motion carried. That brings us to the consent agenda for curriculum and programming.
Okay. We have item A, a preschool family handbook, and I make a motion to approve that.
Can you read the, can you read the,
A motion to approve the items listed on curriculum program consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent. Any second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Placco, could you please call the roll?
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney,
Aye.
Lori Krenisky,
aye.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Motion carried. That brings us to consent agenda for building, grounds, and operations.
Make a motion to approve the items listed on the buildings and grounds operations consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, can you go back and list the item numbers, please?
I'm sorry, A through D. Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, could you please call the roll?
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney,
Aye.
Lori Krenisky,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Denise Brewster.
Aye.
Motion carried. One more item.
Item F, resolution to approve an agreement from TDA for design services related to the Riverview Elementary School expansion and improvement project in the amount of $325,000. And that is again for item F. Can I get a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, could you please call the roll?
Dennis Keeney,
Aye.
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Nay.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Scott Fishel.
Aye.
Motion carried.
For
And there's-
item number 14, Board of Education business. Item A, the Riverside Local School District Board of Education will send out by email a communication to the Riverside Local School District to inform about the progress, planning, and direction of the Board of Education. The Board of Education designates Scott Fishel to meet with Director of Marketing and Communications on Monday, October 28, 2024, to formulate the email communication. The email will be sent on Monday, October 28, 2024. Can I get a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I don't want my name on this, thank you.
And I'll just go on record saying again, I think we should take the time to put the process in place before we communicate on behalf of the board, since the last one did not represent or reflect the accurate comment or accurate content.
Any further discussion? Could you please call the roll?
Lori Kniske,
Nay.
Linda Grassi,
Nay.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney.
Aye.
Motion carried.
So we have another item, which is item B on the building, for the Buildings and Grounds Committee. The Board of Education shall require the chairperson on the Buildings and Grounds Committee to direct the items that will be placed on the Board of Education agenda at each Board of Education meeting based on the discussions at the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, there's discussion. If we're gonna do this for the Buildings and Grounds Committee, then we should probably be doing it for all committees, because we should not be treating one committee differently than we treat the other committees. And we have policy and we just have updates that we are going to make to the handbook that discuss the committees. I feel this is premature. And administration is the one who sets the board agenda.
And so I don't disagree with all the committees being handled the same way. And in our policy 0173, board officers, it says a committee chairperson shall call meetings of the committee, keep informed of the developments and activities under the committee's jurisdiction, and of course report to the board for the committee. There's just, the reason this process is being done is there's just a little bit of a gray area in our policies. And I know that, Ms. Grassi, you've said before that the administration is to control that process, where it very clearly states in our policies 0155 and 0173 that the chairperson of the committee is supposed to control the process. So this just clears it up a little bit, and just in case there's an area or an arena where there's a disagreement, this just makes it clear how the process goes, and certainly open to all the committees following the same process.
So if you were to put a board agenda item and you had requested this agenda item be placed on the board agenda, why did you not at the same time include all the committees? Why did you just include yours?
Well, because I didn't want to be presumptuous that every other chairperson would want to handle it that way at this time. That's all.
Would you be open to modifying that to include all?
I'm very open to that. So I think that's how it's generally written in our policies. It's just not quite clear enough, and I think this makes it clear enough.
So that's why we have a policy meeting. If we would like to change our policies, then we should update them to reflect such.
So I would
before we
ask
do
you,
this.
in this calendar year, when have we had a policy meeting? You're the chair.
We are having one in November.
We haven't yet had a policy meeting all year.
We did so.
And you have them when the new policy is coming out or when there's a request to have a policy meeting. So you, as a member of the policy committee, or me, or anybody else could request that.
Well, I understand, and so I'm just
So why
moving
didn't
this
you request a
forward.
policy meeting?
And this is obviously getting the conversation going, so if someone wants to amend the agenda to make it for all committees, I'm certainly open to that.
I would like to amend the agenda to take it off completely until we can have this put through the policy committee and actually have conversation around it. But
Well, I'm
that's
not
not
so
gonna
sure.
fly,
I'm
so.
not so sure that that wouldn't allow things to be slowed down, which is unfortunately in my 3 years on the board, been the MO, and I think we have a lot of work to do, and we need to get it done. And so I think it's important to know what we're doing and how we're doing it, and this just clarifies it for the chairperson of the committee.
And you just want to speed it up for your committee? I'm just
I'm
trying
open
to
to all
clarify.
committees, so if you want to amend to have all committees, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I've heard twice at the table here that we should make it all committees.
I don't think I would like to talk to our attorney before we make any changes. Again, I don't think that the policy was given to us to consider. There was no discussion about this change until it showed up on the agenda right before the 48-hour rule. So I personally would like to talk to our attorney before I make any changes.
So just so everyone knows, this came from our board attorney.
That's fine. The resolution came from the board attorney, not the policy that's currently in place. And I would like to talk to our attorney, in my opinion.
And I don't think we've had an opportunity to have that conversation with the attorney as a group in open meeting.
Well, this is for this meeting, and I certainly I'm open to the possibility of making this a good change, because I think it would be good for the board. It clarifies things. So I think we're all basically saying the same thing.
No,
And,
we are.
and what I'm hearing you say is you would like to have meetings and discuss it first, and I think it's important to get this passed now.
So
just to
what
make
is the
sure-
rush?
Just to make sure we don't have problems,
What's the
because
rush?
there's a gray area.
No, what's the rush? Why do we have to pass it today? I hear the gray area.
Okay, so-
But what has to be done that's so bad that we have to rush it through today?
Okay. Are you listening?
No, I'm trying to.
Okay, so I'm saying it again, that there's a gray area, and it's not real clear. Okay, this clarifies it, and I spoke with our board attorney, and this is what he suggested. So we can have a meeting with our board attorney, and he's gonna say the same thing. I'm suggesting all the committees follow the same process.
Yeah, and I'm asking you, what is the rush to do it today? Tell me what is in
Okay,
your
again,
plans,
I'm
the
gonna
rush
say
is
it
to
just
do.
clarifies the issue, so there's no gray areas, because when there's a gray area, there can be a disagreement which slows everything down.
There's no-
I don't wanna slow anything down.
So again, if you didn't want to, I'm going to say it again, if you didn't want to slow anything down, why did you not propose a policy, a resolution that addressed all committees and that their chairperson be responsible for assisting the superintendent and the treasurer with developing the board agenda for that committee? I'm not exactly sure, right, what is the rush to this, just the Buildings and Grounds Committee?
It's just an item that we're doing, there's no rush, so we're just doing it. Want to clarify things, I don't know how else that can be said. So if you disagree with it, that's fine. I'm just suggesting that all committees, like what was brought up here, follow the same procedure. And you're the chair of the policy committee, so certainly that can be implemented when we have our next meeting.
Then why do we have to do it right now?
Okay, I've already answered that 5 times, so I'm not going to say it again. Is there any further discussion?
I would like more clarification, since you said you had a conversation with the board attorney. Can you elaborate a little more?
Well, he just said that 0155 is, it says what it says, but it doesn't, it's not clear enough. And so if you want to clear up that gray area, if you will, then this would be the terminology to utilize, and so that's what I utilize. So
Can someone read
that's what the
0155?
board attorney suggested we do.
For us?
I'm sorry?
Can someone read 0155 for us?
That's what I was trying to do.
So you want to read it, Gary, or do you want me to read it?
I gotta find it here real quick.
I have it here if you want it.
Because policy committee is supposed to set the policy. We add those policies when we do the Neola updates. There's absolutely no reason why this can't be discussed at the next policy meeting, which we just called for November, because we have policy updates from Neola to review.
So does someone want 0155 read?
Mm-hmm.
0155 committees, and this is under the bylaws and policy section if you go online. Committees of board members shall, when specifically charged to do so by the board, conduct studies, make recommendations to the board, and act in an advisory capacity, but shall not take action on behalf of the board. Again, all actions have to be voted on by the board. You can't just do that in a committee. Whenever a majority of a committee and/or subcommittee meets for any prearranged discussion of public business of that committee or subcommittee, It shall abide by the open meeting law. The law requires that the committee or subcommittee give public notice of each meeting as well as prepare, file, and maintain minutes of the proceedings. Such minutes shall also be available for inspection by the public. A committee may meet in executive session in accordance with the provisions of bylaw 0166, executive session. Committees shall consist of no more than 2 members. Members shall be appointed by the president. Member may request or refuse appointment to a committee. Refusal to serve on any one committee shall not be grounds for lack of appointment to another committee. Each board committee shall be convened by a chairperson who shall report for the committee. The president shall appoint at the organizational meeting or as soon after organizational meeting as practicable members of the board to stand committees where they shall serve a term of 1 year. Ad hoc committees may be created and charged at any time by the president. Members of ad hoc committees shall serve until the committee is discharged.
Right, so in my mind, this particular agenda item amends policy 0155 because this is not in the policy and we're just going to change the policy for the Buildings and Grounds Committee.
And again, I think that also there would have been a discussion, hopefully with our attorney, about other policy that's out there regarding the superintendent, the treasurer, helping set the agenda and setting the agenda with what the district needs. So, and that's why it does say recommended by the superintendent or recommended by the treasurer, because they are part of that process. This removes them. Again, so this will be another Board of Education updates versus something that's recommended by the superintendent.
Well, it certainly does not remove the administration.
You're setting the agenda.
Okay, no, all it says is that it would direct the items in the committee that the committee and or chairperson approves to be put onto the agenda. The superintendent prepares the agenda for the meeting.
Right, so again, you remove
It
them from the
clearly says that.
Right, you remove them from, right, this does not say that. This says that you are going to choose what goes on the agenda. And that is not.
That's 2 different things.
No, okay.
Well, that's what this says.
Again, I'm going to talk to our attorney. Again, I think that there was not probably a full understanding of what you were trying to accomplish here, because I can't imagine Dan saying that it's okay to change a policy without actually having a policy amended. So we can just move forward. It sounds like there's, again, just disagreement.
Yeah, this doesn't change a policy. This is put in place for a meeting, and what this does for the following Buildings and Grounds meeting, that this would be in place. So I agree that we should change the policy. We should update it to make it clearer.
And I'm not agreeing to change the policy, so again.
Okay, well, okay, is there any further discussion? Can you call the roll?
Linda Grassi,
Nay.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney.
Quick question, did we modify this to all committees
Nope.
or still?
Nope. It's as is.
Okay.
Just
Aye.
Buildings and Grounds.
Lori Kniske.
Nay. Motion carried. That brings us to Board of Education updates. Is there any Board of Education updates at this time or discussion? All right, that brings us to next meeting announcements. Curriculum and Programs Committee meeting, November 14th, 2024 at 7:30 a.m. Finance and Personnel Committee meeting, November 14th, 2024 at 8:30 a.m. Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting, November 19th, 2024 at 7:30 a.m. And Board of Education meeting, November 21st, 2024 at 6 p.m.
7 p.m.
7.
And did we say our policy meeting?
The policy.
The policy meeting is.
November 18th at 7:30 a.m.
November 18th, yes.
All right. Do we,
We do not.
okay, so we can skip, do we need to do anything, Gary? No, we're good? All right, we're going to skip executive session, nothing to go on there, so I will make a motion to adjourn at 8:43 p.m.
Second.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney,
Aye.
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Denise Brewster.
Aye.
Motion carried.